What is going on, everybody? We have a second episode of Stats Over Politics this week. I know it's new, so we're going to throw this in here. We got the NBA season approaching, so we didn't want to take up too much time on Mondays. And like Totty said, we're in the business of making content. So let's give you guys what you want. So we have a special guest with us. If you guys know me, this is my younger sister, Alex Dent. We have a state champion with us, a Joaquin section champ, whatever, a four-year varsity letter. The list goes on and on and on. So the accolades are where they are, and we're happy to have you, Alex. So thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm great. Can't complain.
Man. We have royalty with us.
A lot of people don't know that the Did family is in the Hall of Fame, Ring of Honor.
Ring of Honor.
Put him in the Ring of Honor.
Yeah. So Toddy, how you doing today, man?
Oh man, we are. You guys don't see me going through the motions with my gamble because you guys know I do gamble. Had a couple things go through. We are monitoring this Phillies game. But just want to let you know, do not ever bet on the Calgary Flames hockey team. Don't ever do it. I promise you, they will put you out of your misery. But shout out to the Saints, because the Saints, they lost again. And I know this is a basketball show, but I had to go down with the ship with the Saints last night. And didn't turn out too well for me.
My condolences.
Condolences. Well, we also have to give condolences to Alex, Toddy. I don't know how it happened, but this season she became a Chargers fan.
Oh,
so I know it's a basketball episode, but Toddy brought it up, so we got to throw it in there.
Just like her, the lady that's been going viral, the Chargers fan, where everybody says she's a plant.
That's exactly Alex.
Okay.
That's exactly Alex.
It's not.
Do you have anything to say about your Chargers before we get going?
Who's your mom's team?
My mom doesn't watch football, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
If she had to pick a team, she wouldn't have a. Because I know you like the Eagles. Alex, I guess, is a Chargers fan.
I guess.
Is a Chargers fan.
Hey, man, it's as of this season, Toddy. This season, she made the commitment.
Well, I'm trying to watch football again. When I was actually watching the Cowboys fan, I saw 88, and I was like, "Oh, Des Bryant."
Yeah. Hey, Toddy, I got people saying they can barely hear you. Can you turn up your mic or speak louder, please?
Oh, okay, got you. Here, we're gonna get right.
No worries. So, since we have Alex on, we're gonna come to you first. What were the biggest Western Conference offseason moves in your opinion?
The biggest in terms of like quantity is probably the Blazers, because I felt like they got half the league. But I think who won the offseason in the West was probably the Lakers. Only because they really kept Reeves and they just added more depth. So I like the Lakers moves they made this offseason.
Well, since we're talking about the Lakers, I have to go ahead and throw in there. The Lakers did get Cam Reddish, and Totty knows I'm a big Cam Reddish fan, so I'm expecting big things from him now. He's in La La Land. So, Toddy, I'm going to bring it to you next. What offseason moves really were impacted on the summer that you think are going to be big roles in the next season?
Well, there's really a bunch. Kind of just going into, the top three teams, like you could say they had the most acquisitions in the Western Conference were the Suns, the Lakers, and I guess you could say the Blazers, just based off of the last trade. I think the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers, as Alex already kind of mentioned, the Lakers, I feel like made the most moves of anybody. Obviously, the Suns getting Bradley Beal. When you add an all-star, a guy who once upon a time averaged 30 points a game, your team is going to get dramatically better. I don't care who's on your team. And then kind of just the pieces around the Suns that they surrounded everybody with. I do have in my handy-dandy notes, as Kevin likes to, he's more of the stat guy. Take pride in taking notes. So spend a lot of time in these notes. Okay, so
A lot of time.
Bill, last year he averaged 23 points. And that was just last year. I don't know if I think it's probably averaged somewhere in that range, just based off of kind of how their whole team dynamic has been looking in the preseason when it comes to just Book, KD. I mean, even we saw just a glimpse of what they would look like in the playoffs by winning those 2 games against the then defending world champs, averaging damn near 35 apiece in the playoffs was insane. And then you add Bradley Beal to that mix. Those guys are going to get the majority of the shots. So, I mean, let's just say on a nightly basis, what can they average? Probably like 80. Like, just between those 3 guys, they can just get you 80. Like, everybody else can kind of just fall in line. And I feel like some of the...
Hey, Ty, they're saying they still can't hear you, man. I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you plug your mic in and out again?
Sure, no problem. Yeah. Can they hear me now? Can you guys hear me? Damn, that's crazy.
We'll see when
While he's having troubles, I did want to say the Suns basically traded away their whole team for KD. So I felt like this offseason was really important for them because they just needed a team again. I mean, we kind of saw that in the playoffs where they just kind of relied on KD and Booker to kind of do everything. So adding like Eric Gordon, right? Grayson Allen, right?
Grayson Allen.
Watanabe, I'm really high on him. I thought he was great for the Nets when he played with like KD back then. And then Nurkic as well. So I thought they're getting it. They're trying. So.
Yeah.
All right, Toddy, you can go ahead and continue. See if we can hear you.
Yeah.
We hear you fine, so hopefully they can hear you.
Yeah. Kind of like what Alex was saying. Grayson Allen, I thought was a very underrated signing by them. Grayson averaged 39% from 3-point range. Yuta Watanabe averaged 44% from 3-point range. And then Bates Diop, I think he came from San Antonio. Yeah, San Antonio. He shot 39% from the free throw line. So now, as our guy Nick Young likes to say, the corner store guys. These are basically all corner store guys that are going to live in the court. All we need y'all to do is just sit in the corner and wait for the ball to get kicked out to y'all, because we got 3 dudes over here that can damn near probably going to make the all-star team, if you kind of think about it. We don't need y'all to be trying to go out there and create, do this, that, and the third. And y'all just sit in that corner and wait for the ball to get kicked out to y'all. And then I think Eric Gordon, too, is a guy that he could have went pretty much anywhere else and signed for probably like 1 year, $10 million. But I think he definitely saw the opportunity to play. Oh, shit, I can go play with D-Book, KD, and Beal.
Hard to say no to that.
Absolutely, I'm going to be the leader of the second unit. So I just think that this team and how nicely it filled out over the offseason was tremendous, because when they had Ayton on the team, it was kind of like, damn, they got 4 guys, but they have no bench. So when you trade Ayton, you kind of free up a little bit of money. But even though after all of the offseason acquisitions, they were getting a lot of guys off of like 1-year deals, $2 million here, vet minimum here, $2 million here. But then you look at Devin Booker, $30 million, KD, $35 million, and Bradley Beal, $40 million. It's either you're making $40 million or you're making $2 million on this team. So I just think that the way how this roster kind of filled out, and then the Ayton trade was pretty much the cherry on top. And Alex kind of mentioned the Lakers. As far as the Laker offseason moves, Gabe Vincent was a guy I think Gabe could definitely start on this team. But I think D'Angelo, just the way that money works, D'Angelo Russell is probably going to be the guy that's going to end up starting. Taurean Prince is another guy who shot 38% from three last year. He's a guy that can probably guard probably the team's best player from time to time. I'm not necessarily saying that he'll probably guard the best player of the opposite team all night, but he could definitely give some good defensive minutes. But he could definitely he'll have a couple of nights where he'll knock three. He'll go 3 of 7 from three, and those threes will definitely count. And they added Cam Reddish, as Kev already mentioned. He's just another guy who could just get you buckets off the bench, basically, and hasn't really found a home in the NBA. A guy that me and Kevin were real high on, even before at Duke, he was like the number one player in high school. And if you go back to a bunch of guys in an interview when Anthony Edwards said, who was the coldest dude that you ever had to play against in high school? He said it was Cam Reddish. He gave me 50 in high school. So I think Cam, if he just finds a place where he could just go out there and go hoop, he'll definitely succeed. And being able to play with Bron, he needs guys that can kind of just go out there and go hoop, especially young guys. Jackson Hayes, another guy who could probably just protect the rim. Anthony Davis getting minutes off the bench. I don't know if he'll play too much, but he was a guy that was drafted really high coming into the league. Hasn't really panned out as much, but he could be another defensive prowess for the Lakers. And Christian Wood is definitely another wild card too, a guy that can kind of who can score, shoot the ball from deep. Doesn't really play a whole lot of defense, but I'm curious to see what the starting lineup will be for this Lakers team because of all of the depth that they have, and they have a lot of length as well too. So we'll see where this Lakers team will definitely pan out. You'll see where I have them ranked in the Western Conference later on in the pod, but I think as far as just the whole NBA, I feel like the Lakers and the Suns made the most moves in the offseason.
Man, I can't believe both of you guys went through. Both of you guys are big basketball heads, and no one mentioned the Suns getting Bol. KD said this could be the fourth guy. He could be. Totty took all my notes, and there's one other guy that you guys didn't say, so I got to make sure I come in here and stamp on. Bol is going to come in here and give this team what they've been missing. DeAndre Ayton really couldn't stretch the floor. Like Totty said, all they need to do is sit in the corner and shoot, and Bol can do that. Bol can help stretch the floor. He can dribble the ball, so all of them can be off the ball. He can make plays for himself. We saw Bol in Orlando last year really get to flourish. We really saw it when in his rookie year. It just really sucks that it was the Joker's big year. That was the first year that the Joker became the Joker. So he got the backseat at the end of that. But I think Bol is going to be huge. And then Joseph Nurkic. I know a lot of the Blazer fans aren't too high on him. We had DJ Rhino on the show a while ago, and he wasn't too high on him. But we all can't sit here and say that he's not one of the top passing big men in the league. And that's what this team needs. He averaged 3 assists as a big man. So for him to come in here and then have a big man that can go out there and facilitate, and not only facilitate, stretch the floor. He shot 36% from 3 last year. So for him to have 13 points and 9 rebounds, all he's going to have to do is stretch the floor and set screens. So I feel like that was another huge thing. And so before we move on from offseason moves, let's talk about the Grizzlies. I know they didn't have a lot of offensive moves in particular, but with the Ja Morant 25-game suspension impact, they had to make a couple of trades. What were your guys' thoughts on them bringing in Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose? Alex, I'm going to come to you first.
I think Smart is a great choice just because of his grit and his competitiveness. It kind of fits the culture that Jenkins, right? The head coach's name?
Taylor Jenkins, yes.
Yeah. And like the whole unit has. I think that's great. But also they re-signed Baines for an extension, which I think was important as well. That's kind of like hidden under. But I think the Grizzlies, in terms of roster, looking at their roster, they're pretty good. Like I don't see really any gaps they needed to fill besides getting maybe another point guard to kind of replace John Morant just for like the first like quarter of the season. But I don't know how far they could go. I need to see what they look like without John Morant those 25 games, because that's going to be very important, right? Because I think they'll be great in the playoffs, but those first 25 games in this very competitive West, I try to rank my teams, and this is tough this year. So like those 25 games mean a lot now, especially with all these offseason moves. So it'll be interesting to watch.
Totty, before I ask you, Totty, I have to let everybody know. Totty, I didn't know if you know this, but Alex is a huge Celtic fan. Another Sacramento born and raised Celtic fan. So, Totty, just speak on the departure of Marcus Smart and the impact that he's going to bring to the Memphis Grizzlies, like Alex mentioned, during that 25-game suspension without John Morant.
Oh, it broke my heart. We always mention the group chat on here, and when the initial trade first went through, I was like, "Oh, we got Porzingis. We got rid of Brogdon, and I think it was Brogdon and like somebody else too." And I was like, "All right, cool." And then all of a sudden, they were like, "Hold on, the trade has been nullified. It's not real. Go back, put it in reverse." And I was like, "What? Wait." I was like, "Okay, so we're not getting Porzingis." They were like, "There has to be like." There was like a time frame that had to happen by like midnight or something like that. And then all of a sudden, Marcus Smart gets traded to I was like, but there's no way we just got rid of Marcus. Like, I couldn't believe like Marcus Smart was like gone, because from him getting drafted from Oklahoma State, I remember this was kind of like when it was after the Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen, Rondo reign. Perhaps, and then we were just kind of rebuilding and trying to just figure everything out. And I remember Marcus Smart was on one of those teams post KG, Ray Allen, basically the championship team. And I think it was a part of like one of our draft picks that we ended up getting from Brooklyn. We traded all those guys to Brooklyn. So it was kind of just like he's been there for like a long time, basically the whole majority of his career. And then for him to kind of get traded, it kind of hurt. But then when you saw the dynamic of just how it's kind of like our team was getting redundant with just being kind of guard heavy. We needed another dynamic. So I feel like this trade will kind of work out for the best. But as far as from the Grizzlies side, John Morant is definitely missing 25 games just because, all of his, antics that have happened off of the court. I'm not really going to get too much into that, but I think it's going to hurt the Grizzlies because obviously you have, a guy in John Morant who's a top 10 player in the league. And when he's not on your team, it's going to be like, okay, where are we going to get 30 points a game, 25 a game? Like, where are we going to pull out this 25 points a game? Like, those things just don't grow on trees. So I feel like Marcus Smart is a nice addition, but I don't think he's going to be able to fill the void of a John Morant at all. As far as Desmond Bane goes, I think that you're gonna see him pick up the scoring load a little bit. I think you'll see him average. He's getting all the shots. I get that. I get Jaren Jackson Jr.'s on the team, but Desmond Bane is going to be the primary option on this team for these 25 games, and I think you'll see him average near 20 to 23 points a game. That's kind of what I'm estimating on what he'll look like in that small sample size. But I think he'll look really good and kind of be like, oh shit, like this he's actually really good. So it's going to be a time for guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., who people say he's one of the top centers of the league. He's got to definitely step up. Now I don't know if that's going to help out. If he's going to be able to fill that void, I don't think so. But it's going to be tough for this Grizzly team without John Morant for the first 25 games of the season.
Yeah, so we talked about them missing John Morant. So last season, they went 11-10 in the games without John Morant. But a big piece of that team is no longer here, and that was Tyus Jones. In those games without John Morant, he averaged 20 points and 9 assists. He is now on to Washington, so we will talk about them later. But I think that's going to be a big role that they're going to miss. If Marcus Smart can come in here and contribute on the offensive end as much as he is on the defensive end, that's going to be a huge role. I think Derrick Rose is going to be a low-key huge pickup for them. I think he's going to be able to come off the bench and just give them a lot of leadership. This team has been really young. That's all we hear about with the Dylan Brooks and all the stuff, all the antics last year. This is just a really young team. So to get some more vets in this team, Steven Adams is going to come back and be healthy. This team could really do a lot. But I'll get into where I feel they'll fall in the standings later. But while we're on the Western Conference, what do you guys say, Alex?
Okay, Brandon Clark, is he healthy now?
He
I remember
be.
He should be, right?
I think he's still.
He should be coming back this season. I don't think that he'll be ready next week.
I think he's ready, by next week,
But he'll definitely play this year.
Yeah, okay.
So we're talking about Washington, so we might as well bring up the Golden State Warriors trading Jordan Poole and getting Chris Paul in return. Toddy, what kind of impact do you think Chris Paul is going to make on the Warriors this season?
The dynamic is tough because Chris Paul, he's smaller. The Warriors really need size. They're very redundant at that position already. I get it. It's Chris Paul. I don't know how it's going to fit per se. Like I already said, he's older. He's been hurt. Didn't really play too well in the playoffs, but he was, like I said, hurt. I feel like Steph and the Warriors are always going to figure out a way to make this work and figure out to get their way to the playoffs like they pretty much always do. Not sure how it's going to work, but I feel like Steph, Steve Kerr, Clay, all those guys will figure out a way to kind of get these guys in motion. But I don't know if is he even going to start? Like, what does that starting lineup look like? Like Steph, Chris
There's no
Paul,
way he starts.
You can't start him because Draymond's hurt too. So he's not even going to be able to start the season. So it's kind of just like, how is this going to work? So I don't know. I feel like they'll limp their way to the playoffs in some type of fashion, but I think Clay is going to start, so it's going to be like he's going to probably lead the second unit, in my opinion. He's going to be the highest paid bench player in the league. So, I mean, I don't know how you start him just because of how much of a defensive liability that is.
I know it's preseason, and it doesn't really matter. Like Toddy mentioned, Draymond Green was hurt, but he played in the Kings game off the bench 30 minutes and had a huge role. So, Alex, do you think Chris Paul, if he commits to the six-man role, can win Six-Man of the Year?
I don't think he'll commit, though. Yeah. I think he has that mentality of, like, I'm good enough to start. I should start. Yes. So, I mean, if he wants to commit, I think he could, but it's not that. He could be if he just wants to be. I don't think he wants to come off the bench.
But I mean, if you got to think about it from a Chris Paul perspective, he's always hurt in the playoffs. We've seen him year after year, all these big time regular seasons, he gets hurt in the playoffs. Game 7 against the Warriors. There's a list that goes on and on and on. Him coming off the bench, playing about 20, 30 minutes a game is taking a lot of miles off those legs. So in the long-term picture, it could actually pay off for Chris Paul to help him extend his career. We saw with Carmelo Anthony, like Alex mentioned, he just thinks he's good enough, so he shouldn't come off the bench. But we saw Melo get to extend his career a couple of seasons, so hopefully Chris Paul gets to do the same. But before we move on, we talked about the other side of the Blazers trade. So let's dive into the Blazers trade. Alex, what do you think DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon bring to the Blazers this upcoming season?
Oh gosh, that's so many names. I think I have the Blazers at 11, but I feel like they could make play-in because I think they have a good mix, right? They have a lot of young players, they have a lot of experienced players, and then they have a lot of vets. So I think it's just kind of combining everything together and trying to just make something out of it. But the West is so tough right now. I don't see them getting out of the play-in tournament, but I think they could make it. But yeah.
You're all good. You're all good.
Oh, I'm good.
All right, Ty, what do you think about all the acquisitions that Portland made?
Yeah, when we had Rhino on, DJ Rhino, for basically the whole Dame trade, it was kind of just like, okay, what is this team going to look like now? So you have Shaedon Sharpe, you have Anthony Simons, and you have the new draft pick in Scoot Henderson, and ultimately you get DeAndre Ayton in that whole big Dame trade. So what does this team look like? I kind of agree with Alex. I think that they could probably fight to get into a play-in type spot. I'm not sure how good they'll actually be just based off how young that they are. I think Scoot Henderson is a bucket getter. I kind of saw it a little bit in the brief moment that he had in preseason, or not in preseason, in summer league, and kind of now in preseason, you're seeing he's kind of being able to get whatever shot that he wants. You could have argued that he could have been the number 2 pick after Wemby, but based off of fit, the Charlotte Hornets ended up going in a different route with Kev's boy, who claims to be one of them ones. I think Shaden is going to be a guy that we got to watch out for. As far as his potential and what he can be in this league, we kind of saw what he was doing kind of last year when it was just him out there by himself with no Dame, no Anthony, and it was just like, hey, roll the ball out there. Oh, I can get you 27. I get you 25. If I'm able to get all of these shots, I can pretty much get whatever shot that I want. And I feel the same way about Anthony Simons. Even we saw a short stint with him when he was kind of running the show. Like, I can get you 27. I can get you 28 points a game with no Damian Lillard because I think at one point in time, Dame and Shaden were kind of training with each other. And he was basically showing them everything that he knows for the most part. And as far as for DeAndre Ayton, he didn't want to be like the fourth fiddle in Phoenix. So he's kind of coming here. Like, I don't know if this is all the way his team or is this kind of like, this is,
you got to say it's Anthony's team. You got to say it's Anthony's team.
To be honest, it might be Scoot's team, but they're all so young. So it's kind of just like, we're going to let them kind of roll out the ball and see like who's going to be that standout guy. You got to give them like at least 10 games to kind of be like, all right, this is kind of like how we're going to be able to run the offense. And I feel like you got 4 solid guys that definitely get their own shot in Shaden Sharp, Scoot, Anthony, and DeAndre Ayton. So I feel like those guys they can pretty much get whatever shot that they want. And I feel like it's kind of up to Chauncey Billups to kind of, hone these guys in and be like, all right, let's bring them in. We're going to run this for our offense and kind of see where it goes. I don't know if they'll be like any good, but you're going to see flashes from all 3 of those guys and Anthony, Shaden, and Scoot for the most part. DeAndre he is what he is, but he can still get you like 20 and 10 a night. But I feel like outside of those 4 guys, you're not going to see anybody else really get too many touches for the most part, because that's kind of like the core that they're going to try and build around.
I think DeAndre Ayton's going to be huge for this team. Chauncey Billups really needed that anchor to his defense, and DeAndre Ayton could be that anchor. He averaged 18 and 10 last season, so for them to have that solid big man, and then to have Robert Williams, your guys' ex-big man, coming off the bench alongside Malcolm Brogdon. They also have Jeremy Grant on this team. This team has a lot of depth. And this is a lot of the vets, or not vets, a lot of players that are no longer playing in the NBA. A lot of the retired guys are saying that a lot of these young teams don't have vets. This young team has a lot of vets, so they're going to be able to be brought on a lot easier than a lot of teams like the Rockets, who kind of got to figure it all on their own. Like John Wall mentioned in the summer, like they're just doing whatever they want over there. So for them to have that kind of foundation, I feel like it's going to take them a long way. But the Blazers as a team I think they're just going to struggle. I don't think Malcolm Brogdon's going to finish the season with them. I'd be surprised if he did, because besides the injuries, if it wasn't for the injuries, he'd be a Clipper. So that, they have that injury concern with him. He just got 6th man of the year on a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So Malcolm Brogdon still has a lot in the tank. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can bring to the table and mentor Scoot Henderson. So while we're on the Western Conference, Totty, I'm going to come to you first. Who are some of your breakout players in the Western Conference?
Got them in my handy dandy notes right here, Kev. So I kind of went back and forth on this. There was 2 kind of questions. I thought I kind of went hand in hand with my particular breakout players in the West. But I didn't want to involve rookies in that one. I kind of just wanted to separate the 2. So my first breakout player in the West is Keegan Murray. I think Keegan needs to kind of step up and be better than Harrison Barnes, pretty much. So I thought what did Harrison average, like 15-ish last year? Or probably like...
Yeah, probably. I know Keegan averaged 10.
Kev could probably look up those stats real quick. But I think that the reason why they drafted him is because, well, Kevin, he's the Kings fan, and everybody in the group chat, they're pretty much all Kings fans. And
he averaged 15 last year.
Harrison averaged 15?
Yes.
Yeah, so averaged it. So they kind of need Keegan to average like around that, I feel like, maybe a little bit more. But he showed a lot of promise in the playoffs. But I feel like he should start now, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably what's going to end up.
Yeah, he started last year.
Yeah, so I think Keegan, him being in the starting rotation, getting all the 82 game reps, I feel like he's going to get a lot more touches. You'll see him probably a lot. They'll drop a lot more players for him. He's definitely going to end up being that third option. I feel like with him being a third option, it should come with 17 points, 5, 6 rebounds a game. I feel like that's something that's very doable. And if he keeps playing, if he averages 17 a game in the second year, I feel like that's a big win for Sacramento. And just the Kings, them making the playoffs last year, beating the drought by 16, 17 years.
16 years, baby.
I feel like with Keegan Murray being him being drafted as high as he went, and him being able to get some of that playoff run, I feel like with another year under his belt, he can't, like, it's only up for him from here on out. And the way that this Kings team is, the way that they perform, and the way that everyone's kind of projecting them to be, I feel like that's going to entail Keegan Murray's going to just only get better and have a breakout year. As far as for my second guy I had on here, Jalen Green. Jalen Green was number 2 pick a while ago. You're kind of looking at all the moves that they made in the offseason. This is kind of the year that JG has to kind of, all right, like, you're the guy. We signed all these. We signed Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks. You know, they hired Ime Udoka. The Rockets are going to try to make a swing and try to be a team that can contend for a play-in spot and maybe even make the playoff spot. This team is still relatively very young. You do have Jabari Smith Jr. coming off his rookie year. It was a very I'd say it was underwhelming as far as maybe to his standards. I thought he played better at the end of the year, but I think he could have played a little bit better. Looked really good in the summer league, and get a little bit of minutes here in preseason. But I think this is definitely Jalen Green's team. We saw, him go on Paul George's podcast. They asked about, what do you think about James Harden probably coming on? He's like, I don't know if that's going to really work. And I think that this is definitely his team, and he has to definitely break out and show everybody why he was the number 2 pick once upon a time. And I think that he can. I think Jalen Green can average 25 points a game this year. I think that's he has that potential. He was that guy coming out of high school. He was that guy coming out of G League Ignite, and I think he's going to be the number 1 scoring option for this team. And I feel like if they're going to be a good, solid team, he has to play better and he has to be good. So I got Keegan Murray and I got Jalen Green as my breakout guys in the Western Conference.
All right, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are your breakout players in the Western Conference?
So my first one is going to be Chet from OKC. That's kind of self-explanatory, though. I feel like this OKC team has it now. I think they got all the pieces that they kind of need. Now it's just kind of building them up. And so it's going to be very interesting to see him kind of fit with Shea, that whole squad they got down there. So that's a player I'm going to be looking out for. Another one is Zion. I'm tired of him being injured. I just want him on the court at this rate. I need to see what New Orleans can do, because when he played last year, they were number 1 in the West, and they could have made it really far in the playoffs. So my thing is, okay, obviously when you play, you're the number 1 team in the West, in a very stacked West. So I just need to see a complete healthy New Orleans team. And New Orleans is only going to go as far as Zion takes them. So I need to see that. And then I think another one is Anthony Edwards from Minnesota. I think he did great in the World Cup. He was that player for the USA. So it's interesting if he could get that Minnesota squad, even though they lost a few pieces, and try to get them into not just the play-in, but like a solid, secured playoff spot. And I need him to do that. I need him to be I want him to be all NBA. I know he could be an all-star, but I think he can be all NBA this year.
All NBA. Okay, I can see it. What were you about to say, Totty?
Even going back to what Alex was saying about Zion Williamson, even going back to 2 years ago when they were in the playoffs, the whole Alvarado GTA, him and Chris Paul going at it. Zion was hurt
and they made the playoffs still. And we saw last year when they were number 1 seed, Zion doing the 360 dunk, and everybody wanted to fight, and he ended up getting hurt pretty much after that. And then they kind of just fall off a cliff. So it's like when Zion plays, they can be very good. And we've seen this team make it to the playoffs without Zion Williamson, and they won a couple games in the first round. Just imagine if he was healthy for that series. So he hasn't been able to show that he can be healthy. I feel like we all agree when Zion Williamson is healthy that he's one of the best players in the league. He is all NBA, pretty much everything, all-star, all the accolades kind of fall into place after that. So I thought that was very interesting about Zion, because I think we all agree that he's, one of the best players in the league. He's just availability is what kind of killed him.
Yes, and for the audio-only listeners, we have our first comment of the day, and it's from our father. He says, Zion has looked good so far, ... So even he's questioning it. Like, it looks good, but yeah, so far it looks good. It's like, it's just dangling in front of us. It's showing us so much good stuff, but we got to see if it can prolong it. So going into my breakout players in the West, I had Keegan Murray on here, but, Totty doing Totty just had to go ahead and snag that one from me. So I'm going to go ahead and stay with Shaedon Sharpe. I think Shaedon Sharpe's going to have a huge year. In the 22 games without Damian Lillard, he averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. In the last month, like Totty mentioned, he went crazy. He averaged 23 points, 5 assists, and 6 rebounds in the month of April. So Shaedon Sharpe's going to really get that rock and be able to put on a show and see that he can do a lot of the work. So if Scoot takes a while to get going, they're still going to have Shaedon Sharpe. So I think he's going to flourish in that role. He's going to be a 2-3 for the Blazers team. And like Totty mentioned, I don't know if he mentioned it actually, this is who I wanted the Kings to draft. I was the Shaedon Sharpe guy. As soon as we got 4, I text Toddy. I said, Shaedon Sharpe's coming to sack. I'm sending him all this stuff. I said he didn't need to go to college. He's going to come in here and do his thing. So I'm a big Shaedon Sharpe fan. Alex, I don't know if I told you, I went into Jamba Juice the other day, and there's a little cutout of Shaedon Sharpe, and I sent it to the group text. So Shaedon Sharpe is going to be a big deal in Portland. So, and then my next guy is going to be Jonathan Kuminga. We talked about a fellow G League guy in Jalen Green. I think Jonathan Kuminga can really step up for this team and show that he was the top 10 pick for a reason. In this preseason, he's averaging 26 points, 6 rebounds, and shooting 55% from the field and 47% from 3. So if he can do that, help stretch the floor, and then be that athletic defender, we saw in the playoffs that he was guarding the best defender. He wanted to guard the Ja Morants. He wanted to guard the Jason Tatums. He wanted to go out there and guard the best player. He wants to show that he can do it on both ends. So if this is a big year for him, last year everyone thought him alongside other fellow first-round pick Moses Moody were really going to take that jump. And they really just didn't give what we all expected them to give. So for this team to really hone in on this championship run, Jonathan Kuminga is going to have to really turn it up. I know we only did 2, but I have to throw this out here. Cam Reddish is going to be a breakout player this season. I think Cam Reddish can go in here and play the J.R. Smith role, but play defense. We saw J.R. J.R. averaged a cool 14, 15 along LeBron, got a couple of rings. We can see Cam Reddish do that. When Cam Reddish was in a stable environment in Atlanta, he was able to show that he can contribute in the playoffs. He's been hurt. He's been battling injuries, and then he's just been getting out of the rotation once he gets healthy. He's been traded 3 times, but I think we saw in Portland in his very few games, they threw him right in the lineup, and he was being very productive. Cam Reddish, if in the right environment, and just he has to play it with a team that believes in him. The Lakers signed him to a 2-year deal. He's been running around team to team, like I mentioned. So for him to have this foundation, I think he's going to come out here and show why he was a former 10 pick. And I know you guys hate me for it, and I know I'm going to get killed for it, but I'm going to die on this sword. Cam Reddish is going to be a breakout player.
You're going to die on that hill.
While we're talking about breakout players, Alex, give me your top 2 rookies in the West.
Okay. My first one's Scoot. And I picked him over Victor because Victor's my second. Is because I feel like Scoot has just a bit more experience playing, number one, in a league like the NBA, coming from the G League, whereas Victor played overseas. And I think he's already kind of accustomed to the NBA because it's not that much of a change in terms of like spacing and things of that nature. But just playing against people who either have been in the NBA or has aspirations to go. So I think Scoot maybe just in the beginning has a bit more, his adjustment period is going to be quicker than I think Victor is. But I can't take out Victor. He's the number one pick for a reason. He's 7'5" and doing whatever he wants to do on the court. So those are my two.
All right, Todd, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are going to be your top two rookies in the Western Conference?
I think it's kind of self-explanatory for me. Victor Wembanyama, I feel like he's the best rookie, just period, in this class probably. And I'm gonna, by technically speaking terms, I'm gonna say Chet Holmgren.
There you go. You finally listening to me.
Even though this is his second year, but he hasn't played an NBA game yet, so technically he's a rookie. Hasn't really played an NBA game. I think for just the two, I think that Wemby, him and him playing under Pop is just kind of like, all right, playing under a Hall of Fame coach. He's still trying to figure out what he's able to do, and kind of just like, all right, how's he going to react? I feel like in the preseason, you're just seeing him kind of just react to a bunch of things, and he's just kind of just going out there and just hasn't really been able to settle into the game. I feel like once those games start to sit in, he'll get a lot more settled in as far as scoring wise. I feel like he's just going to go out there and block a bunch of shots, get a bunch of rebounds, and all the scoring will end up coming later. Now, as far as Chet Holmgren goes, this guy has just looked incredible, and this is preseason. I'm not trying to get too crazy on preseason, but he's looked like he belongs. And once upon a time, people were saying that he was the number one overall pick, but then pretty much on draft day, that kind of all changed when Paolo Banchero ended up getting drafted, and the rest was history. But Chet being able to fit on this really young, talented team with Shea, Giddey, and the Williams brothers, and pretty much figuring out a way on how they're all gel. I feel like he's going to be able to fit right into this team. And I mean, this team made the play-in last year, and that was without Chet Holmgren. We thought Chet was going to play in the play-in game, but that wasn't neither here nor there. I think with him kind of coming into this team, he's going to kind of just come in and just settle in, and he's going to go and get buckets, because Shea's first team All NBA last year. He's was a top 10 guy last year alone, and he needs another guy that can kind of go out there and get buckets, and I feel like Chet is the perfect guy to definitely do that. So those are my two rookies, Wemby and Chet, for the most part.
Yeah, when I made this topic, I was like, man, I think this is going to get real repetitive. But Alex, throwing a wrench in there with Scoot, really. But, like Totty mentioned, I think it's self-explanatory with number one, with all of us. We all have to go Victor Wembanyama, 7'5". He's able to do everything on the court, like Alex said. So for him to come in here and not only play under Pop, but that historic franchise with number one picks like Tim Duncan and David Robinson, for him to follow into those, and we saw the pictures of him hanging out with Tony in the offseason and hanging out with Tim, and Manu's hanging out with him. So he's in the right fit. We talk about like I mentioned with the Grizzlies about the veteran presence. They have the veteran presence, and then they have the retired presence. So, and on top of having arguably the best coach in the league in Popovich. So I think Victor's going to have a huge season. I think he can arguably be up there for defensive player of the year right off the bat. I think he could go out there and, he's averaging about 2.5 blocks now. So if he can go out there and average a block 3, it got Jaren Jackson the defensive player of the year award. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then secondly, I'm going to have to go Chet Holmgren. Like Toddy mentioned, this guy is going to give the Thunder what they've been missing. They could have had an opportunity to go in for Victor, but they had a guy in Chet Holmgren, so it didn't really matter. They wanted to go all in. They didn't need a tank, and that's all they were missing. We saw Jalen Williams, a small center, come in here and really make an impact for them. So it showed that they need that. Like we mentioned, Chet can go out here and stretch the floor. He can put the ball on the ground. Him and Victor are very similar. It was very weird to see them run up and down the court in the same game. It was like I was watching like a my player game, because you just don't really see those kind of archetype pop players just running around. So they were going out there flexing on each other, and you can definitely tell that they're hearing all the noise of saying that Chet's just the American version of Victor, and Victor's just the European version of Chet. So it's going to be interesting to see how their careers go. And like Toddy mentioned, he's now going to be a rookie, so it's going to be interesting to see how their careers go. So while we're in the West, let's talk about the big dogs in the West. Toddy, I'm going to come to you first. Give us your contenders in the Western Conference.
I feel like it's 3 teams as far as, guys that could really contend for championships. Obviously, the defending champs and the Denver Nuggets, the Lakers, LeBron James, AD, all those guys over there. And I think the third team is the Phoenix Suns. Definitely after the acquisition that they made, I'm getting Bradley Beal. I think those are like pretty much the three teams that I pretty confidently say universally are the, teams that are contending in the Western Conference.
All right, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are your contenders in the Western Conference?
Same thing. Literally in that order. Nuggets, Lakers, and Suns. I have a tier 2 that could potentially contend for a championship, but it just really depends on – I need to see them play throughout an 82-game season, and that's the Grizzlies and the Warriors, because I'm never going to count out the Warriors. I feel like you just can't. And I think the Grizzlies are a great team. I just don't know. These first 25 games are really going to dictate kind of their standing. And if I'm the Grizzlies, I don't want to be in a spot where I have to play against the Nuggets in the first round. I mean, that'll be great for me as a fan to watch. But if I'm the Grizzlies, I don't want to play the Nuggets, the Lakers, or the Suns in the first round. So that is my tiers. But you can't. I think the Nuggets are going to come out the West. So we'll see.
So, like you guys all mentioned, we do have the same three, but I have two other teams in my contender list, and I'm not going to be a homer, but I'm going to put the Sacramento Kings in this contender list. I think they can make some noise. We saw them really make that leap as one of the best offensive teams in league history, and I think that offense is something that could go year to year. Defense, kind of timbers off with the players you bring in, the mentality that you have, but I think this team really went all in, and they didn't have to go out there and get other guys. They really wanted to commit to what they did last year and double down and extending their guys and making sure that we keep everything in-house because we think we have enough. So I think that they can be a contender in the West. We talk about we can't count out the Warriors. The Kings went 7 of them. And if we all really want to be honest, the Kings lost to Steph Curry game 7. If we really want to be honest, we can say it's the Warriors, but when you have 55 in game 7, you sit in the sack home fans to sleep. But another team, everyone knows I'm a big Paul George fan. I think this is going to be a big year for the Clippers. I think they can be in the contenders list. I think this is going to be the season we're not going to have to put if healthy blank, if healthy blank. I think because not only they put the new rule in for all NBA, all the awards, they're both in contract years. If they want to go show that they can continue to play, they're going to be inspired to do it. They're getting a new arena next year. So why wouldn't they want to open the new arena the way they've been playing? So I think Ty Lue is a championship coach. They have the pieces. Russell Westbrook's name got slandered a lot last season. I think them bringing him back is going to really help them. And another guy that I wanted to mention in the breakout players, I think Bones Highland is going to have a great season. We saw what he can do with the Nuggets. I think it's a similar team, but it's a lot more iso ball. But him being just a space guard, he can go in there and play the Lou Williams role. So I think the Clippers are got to be in the contenders list. So now that we're talking about contenders, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are the pretenders in the Western Conference?
I can't believe you said the Kings.
Why not? I mean,
no.
Seed.
I think they're a great team, but I mean, to be in the same category as the Lakers, the Suns, and the reigning champions, the Nuggets, is a very difficult task. Like, I think the Kings could go far. Do I think they can possibly contend? No. But I think they could make it. I think they could probably make it to the conference finals. Do I see them beating Joker and the Nuggets? No. But that's okay. That's okay.
I mean, you basically disagree with me. Western Conference Final, I mean, those are contenders.
Yeah, but I don't think they could beat the other people or the other teams, though. Like, that's in front of them. Like, I don't think they could beat the Nuggets. I don't think they could they could contend with the Lakers. It just, honestly, the Lakers just depends on AD at this rate. Like, the Lakers are great. I think I want AD to be like in the MVP talks. I want him all NBA. I want him defensive player of the year. Like, AD has to come out this year. And if he does, then it's going to be a Lakers versus Nuggets rematch again. But anyway, back to the pretenders. That's funny you put the Clippers, because I have the Clippers as pretenders. Only because I don't trust I don't trust Kawhi and Paul George being healthy. I truly don't. I've never seen them healthy and play a full 82-game season and play a good playoffs when everyone is healthy. So it's going to be very interesting for me. I don't have that trust within them. And then I have the Mavs. I think the Mavs have made some decent moves. I like the Grant Williams signing him, but in terms of like that squad, that roster, I still think they're lacking defense. I think they're still lacking depth. And I just don't think they have enough to compete with all of the other contenders in the West because the West is so stacked. And I have them. Where do I have them? I don't even have them making playoffs.
You're talking about the
Mavericks.
Mavericks.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have as pretenders. I have got the Golden State Warriors as pretenders.
Wow.
I'm just looking at the West. I still got the Warriors making the playoffs. But I'm just looking at how the West has stacked up. All the acquisitions that have been made. Did the Warriors get better compared to everybody else? And I'm going to say no. Phoenix went and got Beal. Lakers went and got a bunch of guys, and they already beat the Warriors last year in the playoffs. So I'm kind of just looking at, the whole Chris Paul. How does the Chris Paul addition really stack up to everybody in the West? And we already have mentioned on this podcast how competitive this Western Conference really is. Can the Warriors beat the Clippers, if healthy, in a 7-game playoff series? I'm not too sure about that. What Alex was saying about the Mavericks, I feel like the Mavericks are kind of in that position too as well, given the fact that they missed the playoffs completely last year. And albeit I get Kyrie was added at the trade deadline and only had so many games together. I feel like they'll kind of still be able to – I feel like they should be able to at least get into the playoffs, but how good can they be? I mean, their defense is god-awful. No one on their team defends. So they're going to be able to score a bunch of points. But as far as my, main team that has, pretender vibes on it, I think it's the Golden State Warriors.
Wow.
So I don't – oh, go ahead, Alex. Get him.
Sorry. You think that Steph Curry on any – so you think – I get the Warriors. I think the moves they made, compared to everyone else on the West, I get that. But they have Steph Curry.
Absolutely.
So – and they just won a championship 2 seasons ago.
They did. They got bounced in the playoffs last year in the second round.
I get that. I'm
going based off of the Western Conference and looking at everybody that's pretty much gotten better, and it's an arms race in the Western Conference. Everybody, the Nuggets just won last year. They really don't have to get better, if that makes sense, because they won it last year. Pretty much the exact same team that they had. I mean, they lost a couple of pieces, but they're pretty much the exact same team. The Lakers made it to the Western Conference, and I feel like they got better last year. The Golden State Warriors, with the team that they had getting bounced in the second round, I don't feel like they got better in any type of way. They added Chris Paul, I get it, but he's an undersized guard that they don't really need, who's older and makes a bunch of money. So I don't know how this Warriors team can contend for a championship with the current roster at hand.
True.
Yes. So like Totty mentioned, I might have missed some stuff. I had to take the dog out to use the restroom. But on my pretenders list, I definitely have the Warriors. I think they just don't – giving away Jordan Poole and getting Chris Paul back, they're now missing 20 to 22 points off the bench. Is Chris Paul going to bring that? Is Jonathan Kuminga going to bring that? I think he could be a breakout player. But Chris Paul, we mentioned his injury history, and then it's – Gary Payton, he's coming back late last season. He found another injury bug. He's another player that's injury rigged. Are we going to see Andrew Wiggins make another step? Is he going to be an all-star again? If he can be another all-star, all-defensive kind of player, and Draymond can continue to go, and Clay can have put together another season off injury, and Steph's going to be Steph, but I just don't think that it's going to be enough. They're aging, like we've been mentioning, so they've been getting hurt a lot more as Draymond got to continue to keep playing as many games as he did. We saw him get hurt a lot. So their depth is really going to show this year. And another team on this list are the Timberwolves. I know that they went all in last season and getting Rudy Gay and putting together with Karl Anthony Towns. I know we haven't seen it. I know Wes is going to see this and try to kill me. But he was hurt last year, so we didn't get to see it. But what we did see is Rudy Gobert is really just average. He really doesn't bring anything on the offensive end. So in the playoffs, they're going to ice him out. So they're playing 4-on-5 out there. So that's going to really hurt them. So Cat might be able to come in and do differently, but I think they're going to be hurt. I think Mike Conley coming in late last season, so this will be a full offseason with Mike Conley. I think that's going to help them. But with the Timberwolves, it really just becomes, is Anthony Edwards going to take that leap? Alex mentioned him for his breakout players. Is Anthony Edwards going to make that leap? If he can make that leap, we can see them do things. Jaden McDaniels at the end of the last season arguably could have been an all-defensive player last year. So they have the pieces. They have Naz Reid off the bench. So they have the pieces, but until I see it, they have to fall in the pretenders category. And then lastly, the Pelicans. We talked about with injuries. We don't know what they can be. We saw them be the number 1 seed, and then Zion go out, and then they're playing team. If not, they're making the play-in. So we can see this team go from very highs to very low. CJ McCollum is only getting older. So we're continuing to ride with Brandon Ingram and seeing if him and Zion and Chris and CJ McCollum can really continue to go. Larry Nance was hurt a lot last season, so him being healthy to come in there and play. Trey Murphy was a huge guy towards the end of the season. Trey Murphy he was one of the guys who would have been an honorable mention on my breakout players list because I think he's going to come in and he could be a 50-40-90 guy with his he's just very aware out there and he's very persistent. So he's got to go out there and do his thing. So I think he's going to be able to bring a lot to them. But like I mentioned, until we see it, they have to fall in this pretenders category. So now that we've talked about contenders and pretenders, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Let's talk about the tankers, the teams that need a tank in this next season.
I think I have the Jazz as probably the last seed in the West, so I could see them potentially tanking. But I also see the Mavs. I mean, you kind of saw that at the end of last season. I think they did sort of tank like those last like few or a couple of games. I think if they don't really succeed the way they want to, I could see them tanking, trying to get just a better draft pick. But I also don't see them tanking because if they do, I think they lose now they're getting on the sketchy side of almost losing Luka. And I don't think Luka wants to tank. So it's very iffy to me. But I have like maybe the Jazz, but the West is so stacked. I don't really see a team potentially like tanking like you normally see in the West with like the Rockets and those type of teams. So.
Okay, so Totty, I'm gonna bring it to you next. Who are your tankers in the Western Conference?
I didn't really have anyone really tanking in the West like that because I feel like everyone feels like they can compete playing playoffs. If there were any teams that kind of would probably be trying to make that leap, I'd say maybe the Jazz, as Alex already mentioned. Just based off, I mean, Walker Kessler is, a good player. He had a great rookie year. We'll see how good they can be. They played well. They were at one point in time in the 8th spot last year, but they kind of fell out towards the end of the year. I think maybe it's very possible if Zion Williamson isn't healthy, the New Orleans Pelicans could definitely be in that race. I mean, last year we kind of saw how good they were when he was not healthy and kind of just went from first to worst very quickly. So I think those are kind of the teams. I feel like the Timberwolves could definitely be in that spot maybe, depending on what they do with Karl Anthony Towns, if they decide to keep him or not. And then just kind of just build around Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert. So I feel like those teams maybe might be in that same position. But at the same time, those teams could all try and make the playoffs at some point in time. So I feel like pretty much everyone in the West is competing for the most part. Now, if we get over to the East, there might be some teams just right out the gate just ready to just, all right, we're trying to go get Cooper Flagg or whoever is coming out number 1 next year.
So, like Alex mentioned, I have this team on the borderline of tanking, and it's the Dallas Mavericks. They are a Kyrie Luka injury away from being tankers. It's literally Kyrie, Luka, and a bunch of plumbers. You're still starting to White Powell at center. Like we've seen year after year that has not been successful successful for them. I think Derek Lively is going to bring life to this team. Having a big man that can stretch the floor, he's a rim runner, he can block shots, is everything Derek Lively wasn't. But they're an injury away from being tankers. But a team that I think is going to be in this category are the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think in those first 25 games is going to show that they just don't have enough. They need more pieces. They're known for developing pieces, but they're no longer developing those pieces. We're not getting the no more the Desmond Baines. Well, I mean, they have Conchar. I don't know his first name, but he's doing highs and lows. But they're going to start having to bring guys in that can compete. You know, Zaire Williams was a bust. We have to come out here and say Zaire Williams wasn't a good pick. So they can start drafting better. They can start picking in those pieces. And then another team on this would be the Jazz. I think the Jazz can take the OKC Thunder route. Danny Ainge is not messing around over there. He's bringing in all these draft picks. You continue to tank. You continue to get more and more picks. They have guys like Jordan Clarkson they could trade, Laurie Marketing if they really want to trade, and just continue to bring in these young guys and build around guys like Totty mentioned, Walker Kessler. They drafted the guy from UCF. I can't remember his name. Him and Keontae George. Keontae George is going to be really good for them. Oh, Taylor Hendricks. They drafted Taylor Hendricks. So they're going to have a lot of young guys. So just continue to really just go all into the young guys and see what they can do. And lastly, I think the Portland Trailblazers. I know Alex has them on the break of the plan, but they're still really young. Are we going to see DeAndre Ayton the number one draft pick? Is he going to be the number one option? We're having these questions early. Is whose team is this going to be? They have a lot of question marks if people are going to finish this season with this team or not. So I think they can be a team that can quickly fall into this category. They could trade guys away with like Robert Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, Jeremy Grant, and just continue to build around this young core and Scoot, Anthony, and Shada Sharp. So those are the three teams that I have for the tankers. So that is it for the Western Conference. So now we are going to move into the Eastern Conference. So we had a lot of off-season moves in the Eastern Conference. So since we have the Celtics on, we'll start with the Celtics. So Alex, I'm going to go to you first. The Boston Celtics swap out Grant Williams and Marcus Smart for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. What were your thoughts?
I didn't watch Porzingis that much. Well, I'll be blunt. I really didn't watch the Wizards that much last season. So I didn't really see Porzingis. So I only have like New York Knicks, somewhat Dallas Porzingis in my head when the trade happened. And so I was like, now I think that does stretch the floor, especially for a guard dominant team with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, right, leading that Celtics team. My only concern is I don't think Porzingis could go up with I don't think he could play defense on the best centers in the league, which is just Joker and Embiid, right? And if we're thinking about, okay, they're contenders, so are the Nuggets. The 76ers may not be contenders, but you have to go through the 76ers to get to the finals to play the Nuggets. So I kind of don't know in that department, but I do like them re-signing Brown, and I do like them re-signing Pritchard as well. I think he was great coming off the bench. I think he got it way more confidence. I think he could handle the rock under pressure and just basically give that ball to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and then just get out the way.
So before I swing into you, Totty, Alex, I'm going to give you his Washington stats. 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks a game. And he played 65 games. He hasn't done it since a rookie. So the big thing around Kristaps Porzingis was his health. So to see him play healthy, I know it was in Washington, so a lot of people, unless you had League Pass, you weren't watching the Washington Wizards. So, Totty, I'm going to bring it to you next. The acquisitions of Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, what will that mean for the Boston Celtics this upcoming season?
I think the Celtics got better. If you kind of look at the guys that they added, championship caliber point guard and Drew Holiday, constantly in Defensive Player of the Year conversations. I think Kristaps Porzingis is, a different aspect as kind of what the Celtics have looked like. We never really had a big since KG that can score. Kristaps Porzingis is coming off of his best season as basically the best season of his career. And I think that he's going to be able to be the third option, but just get a lot of wide open shots because he's kind of already said it during preseason that, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they draw so much attention. So it's going to create a lot of easier shots for him. And I'm very excited to see what this team will look like. And obviously you have that leader in Drew Holiday, a veteran guy who's won a championship, to kind of just, steer these guys in the right direction. Porzingis never really played any meaningful basketball his whole career. So, I mean, a little bit in the playoffs with Luka, but the way the Celtics go to either Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals. So it'll be, a little bit different for him to kind of be out there and be the third option that is just going to get a lot of wide open shots. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this team dynamic will look like. We saw a little bit of it during preseason, but very excited for this team, nevertheless.
Yeah, man. I think the biggest one of all is going to be Drew Holiday. We always mentioned how you guys were always just a point guard away. You guys let's just throw it back a couple years. We had Isaiah Thomas, we had Kyrie Irving. Then you guys decided to have Marcus Smart be the point guard. So you guys brought in Malcolm Brogdon. So it's been this continuous door of point guards and just trying to figure out who's going to lead this team. And I think you guys finally got it right with Drew Holiday. He brings the experience. He brings all the defensive, and he's arguably the best wing defender in the NBA. So you're losing Marcus Smart, but you're getting in Drew Holiday, and it's a better offensive game than Marcus Smart. So I think Drew Holiday is going to play a big role. Kristaps Porzingis, it's going to be interesting because him playing along Al Horford, yes, you guys have the stretchability, but on the defensive end, Al Horford only got so much left in them legs. So it's going to be interesting to see what that kind of aspect looks like. But Jaylen Brown, Jalen Tatum are really going to have to make an impact this year because they're going to have to bring these new guys together and be a big four. So it's going to be interesting to see who takes that step back. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be Drew Holiday, not because it's just how the way it's going to go. He's just that kind of guy. He'll take a step back, but impact the game at a very, very high level on both ends. So it might not show in the numbers, but Drew Holiday is going to go out there and compete night in and night out. So we're got to move on to the best team in the East, in my opinion, the Milwaukee Bucks. So, Alex, I'm going to go to you next. I see you're rolling your eyes for the audio-only listeners, being that you're a Celtics fan. So let's talk about them swapping out Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard.
So I think, obviously, what the Bucks needed was just that perimeter shooting and a guy you could just give the bucket or give the ball to and get a bucket, right? I think Giannis sometimes, I think he's a great basketball player, like overall. I just get a little scared during those crunch moments, especially because they just foul him and then he just doesn't make his free throws. So I needed a guy who could be consistent on all three levels, right? In the paint, mid-range, and three-point and free throws. So I think they got that in Lillard. I think the only thing that they're lacking is when you look at the Eastern Conference and you look at the Celtics, I don't think they have anyone on their team who can guard Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum consistently throughout a 7-game series. So that kind of is a little for me. But then you also have Giannis and Brook Lopez in the back. So it's not that big of a deal. But I think adding Lillard, I mean, like you said, he's one of the top 75 players of all time, and he's the best player arguably in this league. So adding him to an already great organization who won a championship a few years ago, I think that just only makes them better.
Toddy, what were your thoughts on the Bucks offseason moves?
Yeah, Alex kind of mentioned it. Giannis Antetokounmpo, being an MVP in this league, Finals MVP, a guy that can pretty much, gets to the basket at will. He's not really a closer, and I feel like with Damian Lillard being on this team, a guy that can, he averaged 30 last year. So he's going to be a guy that can kind of just come in and just the pick and roll with Giannis and Dame will be a very lethal combo. You could pick a roll with him. You could pick a roll with Brook Lopez. And I'm curious to see the aspect of, how healthy can Chris Middleton be? Because I feel like he'll definitely be a key component on this team. Not really knowing what, he's kind of been in and out of injury the past year. So last year they had a very disappointing loss in the first round to the Miami Heat. Who ended up obviously going to the NBA Finals last year. I feel like with Damian Lillard being added to this team, it's a whole different dynamic. I get it. You lost Drew Holiday in the defense, but you're getting 30 points a game added to your team, and that's going to help. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, with Ja Morant being out, you're losing 25 points a game, but when the Bucks end up gaining 30 points a game from a guy in Damian Lillard, I think it's going to be a very tough team. I think it's kind of, a lot of people are kind of already looking ahead, but I feel like it's going to be the two teams in the two best teams in the Western Conference as far as contender goes, I feel like it's the Bucks and it's the Celtics.
Yeah, we mentioned Damian Lillard coming off one of the best years of his career, averaging 32 points, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists, shooting 64% from the field and 38 from three. So he's doing it on both ends. And we mentioned it, like you guys mentioned, they just needed a closer. We saw Chris Middleton. He was able to be their closer on that finals run. But ever since then, like Totty mentioned, been in and out of the lineup due to injuries. Last year, only averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists. I think he'll have a very similar stat line to last season because Dame's going to come in there and be Dame. Giannis has got to go in there and be Giannis. They're going to have to find answers in other guys. When it comes to these championship teams, to these big twos, like with the Lakers last year, with the Nuggets this year, it's what else do they have besides Jamal Murray, the Joker, AD, and LeBron? So now it's going to be what else do they have besides Dame and Giannis? I think one of the guys that's going to be really big for this team is Marjan Beauchamp out of the G League Ignite. I think he's going to come in and really be able to be an impact player on this team. They got Campaign. They would bring Campaign in, so another point guard who's been around in a winning culture, so it could fit him in right there. So they're going to have the pieces. I believe they still have Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
Yes. So they have the pieces, so they're just going to have to get those other guys to really buy in. And like we talked about with the Suns, just be corner guys and just play your role. You don't have to do too much when you have two all-stars, like Alex mentioned, arguably one of the best players in the game today, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Your role's not that big. You don't have to do too much. Just go in there, do your job, and continue to help us grow. So I know. So the next team we're going to cover didn't make a lot of moves, but they've been in the headlines a lot this summer. So we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. I know you guys are Celtics fans, and when you hear the 76ers, you roll your eyes, you bat your eyes, and I get it. So, Alex, I'm going to come to you first. What were your thoughts on just the drama surrounding the 76ers this offseason?
I actually love the 76ers. They're actually probably my second favorite team. I love Philadelphia, the city, and I love Embiid. And I think having Embiid, they always have a chance at something, right? But obviously Harden wants out. I don't see any moves being made probably until the February deadline. But by that time, season's almost over. You have maybe a handful, maybe like 20 games left, then playoffs. So I don't like them signing Harden and not signing Maxey on his extension, I think. So that was a little hurtful, but I think Maxey is actually one of my breakout players for this year. So I want him to kind of help this team kind of fill that void that Harden was supposed to fill. I do like getting Beverly and Kelly Oubre, signing them, and then keeping Paul Reed as well. I do like him as a backup to Embiid. So they didn't make a lot of moves, especially compared to what the contenders in the East, like you guys have been saying, the Celtics and the Bucks have been doing. But yeah, it's just too crazy right now. Too much drama.
All right, Ty, I'm going to bring it to you next. What were your thoughts on the 76ers drama-filled offseason?
Yeah, kind of just, you saw James Harden kind of come in, like when training camp first started, he was saying that he doesn't really fuck with Daryl Morey and saying that, he's still going to come in and play basketball. And then all of a sudden, now you're just like, all right, where's James at? I don't know. James is, he's in Houston or he's out here. He's, a family matter or it's a personal matter, They asked Joel Embiid, what do you think? Where's James Harden? And he was like, he probably had something better to do and then be at his job. So I really don't know what's going to happen with him. I feel like, you're seeing all the reports, whether it's Ramona Shelburne or Woj. I'm tweeting something out pretty much daily on James Harden's pretty much not at work and he's not at training camp. He's not going to show up. So I think ultimately he probably ends up getting traded to the Clippers. I feel like the 76ers, Daryl Morey is just trying to play hardball and get, as much as he can. And I feel like the Clippers know that James Harden probably isn't going to show up. So they're trying to, strong arm Daryl Morey. And we even saw with Daryl Morey, with James Harden, the Ben Simmons whole trade and fiasco. That trade didn't happen, right away. It was something that happened, I think, at the trade deadline. So we know that Daryl Morey is the guy who ends up, waiting things out in the long run. So, and I think James Harden really isn't afraid to play the long game and kind of just wait out and see what happens. So it'll be tough for me to say that he's going to end up suiting up, next week. I don't know if he's just gonna just randomly just show up and just be like, "Hey guys, I'm back." I don't think he's gonna be playing. So yeah, 76ers are a mess.
You were itching to say something, Alex. Go get him.
Okay. I mean, isn't he making like 30 mil this year?
Yes.
35.
So yeah, he should be chilling and not doing his job. But I think my thing is, I don't think Harden fits on the Clippers team, like at all. And so that's why, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, so where could he go? And nobody wants him.
Yeah.
Nobody wants him. And so now it's kind of, you're in this pickle. If I'm in the Philadelphia office, right? The headquarters or whatever they call it. And I'm like, okay, like, how am I supposed to get rid of him? He doesn't want to play here, but like no one wants him. But I'm not trying to pay him 35 mil this season and a spot on the roster if I'm trying to contend in this Eastern Conference and trying to keep Embiid happy.
Yeah.
I don't think Embiid will leave, but I think it's getting to a point where I feel like if Ben Simmons was still on the 76ers, like this 76ers team would have been like up there with contenders, but I don't think they are anymore. So it's unfortunate, but I don't think he's a great fit for the Clippers. I don't know where he should go.
And even we saw that, Stephen A went on First Take and even said that he had a deal with Houston and they went in like to a meeting and he said that based off his like response to whatever the Rockets were saying, Ime Udoka wasn't really having it. And so he kind of talked his way out of a contract, I guess, with Houston. So, yeah, I mean, even the Clippers, the whole Clippers fit, they have Russell Westbrook. They have basically like a bunch of wings and Russell Westbrook. And, James Harden is a guy that handles the ball. And, that kind of is what Russ already does. So it's kind of just like, all right, so like, what are you going to do? How does this fit? Like, what will the starting lineup look like? It'd be Russ, it'd be Russ, Harden, PG, Kawhi, and then Zubats. Like, is Kawhi's not 4? He's a wing. So I feel like the lineup that the Clippers already have right now kind of just fits what they do. And I feel like if James Harden comes in and tries to be like the distributor, it kind of messes up their team chemistry. So I get it. It's like this team, the James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George team would have been fire like 4 years ago. Like this would have been a team that would have been like, oh shit, like this team they would be in our contender topic about them being probably, favorites in like the Western Conference. So I don't know. It's hard for him to like get him to fit somewhere because like he could just play where he's at right now. He fits where he is right now. So it's kind of just like, I get you don't fuck with Daryl Morey, but like, dude, he's not the coach. Like he said he likes Nick Nurse too. That's the cool thing about it. Like he said he ain't got no problem with Nick Nurse. They got a new coach in, new regime kind of in there, but front office and Daryl Morey that he does not get along with. So the best fit for James Harden is Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about the East. So, Totty, I'm going to bring it to you for – actually, I'm going to go first because I don't want you to steal any of my guys. So, Eastern Conference breakout players. I'm going to have to go first because I want to make sure I show this man some love because like Totty mentioned earlier, or not Totty mentioned, like we bring up the group chat. I sent in a link from All the Smoke. Kevin Garnett stole my take, man. One of my breakout players is Jordan Poole. I was the one who first brought up the comparison of him going to Houston and being that James Harden role. They might not win a lot of games, but I can go out there and he might be an all-star. He could go out there and lead the league in scoring. Like him and Kuzma are only out there to put up buckets and look at the girls. Like that's all they're there for. They just want to put up the buckets. So Jordan Poole in a full-time starting role off the bench, he averaged 20 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. So now he's going to be in a full-time starting role. Tyus Jones knows how to get his guys the ball. So I think he's going to be in a perfect opportunity to have a breakout season. Secondly, Cade Cunningham. He was a guy who played 12 games last season and put up 19 points, 6 boards, and 6 assists. So if this guy can just stay healthy, essentially in his second year, he's going to show that Monty Williams and this Detroit Pistons team can be a team that compete for the play-in because they're going to have an all-star caliber player in Cade Cunningham. He was number one for a reason. Everyone went back and forth between him and Jalen Green. In my opinion, I believe Cade is the better player each day, every day of the week. He's a big point guard. He can do it on both ends of the ball. he's going to be able to make life in Detroit really well. Him and Jalen Duren playing is going to be one of the best pick and roll duos in the NBA. So I'm really looking forward to Cade Cunningham. And then my last guy, Benedict Mathurin. We talked about the extent, the birth of Halliburton. So we saw him get traded and him really be able to flourish with the Indiana Pacers. They drafted Benedict Mathurin. All offseason, we've heard nothing but negative things about Buddy Hield wanting to be out. So now Benedict Mathurin, if Buddy Hield is traded, will step into that first role, that first starting guard for the shooting guard. And I think he's going to blow up. He had a really good season finishing second team all rookie. I think he's going to be a breakout player. And if the Pacers want to make the strides in the Eastern Conference to be a team that can compete for the play-in or maybe even a 6th spot, I don't know, top 5. But if they want to make this jump, I think Benedict Mathurin alongside Halliburton could be a backcourt that are going to be very good to see. And then honorable mention, I think Obi Toppin. I think Obi Toppin in Indiana is going to be able to flourish. We saw what he could do with the Knicks, but now he's going to be free. This is a young team that want to get up and down. I think he's going to be huge. So, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are your breakout players in the Eastern Conference?
So you already stole mine, so thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And that was Jordan Poole from the Wizards. I think another one, I already said this, but Maxey from the 76ers. I need him to be an all-star this year. I think he can make that leap, not just for this organization, but just to grow that team with Embiid, right? Like be that Kobe to that Shaq, right? And I think Maxey could potentially do that. And then Mikal Bridges from the Nets. I think you kind of saw it somewhat in the Nets, or not the Nets, the Suns when Booker was out a little bit, and then it kind of translated into the Nets. And so I'm really looking at him being an all-star this year and potentially all defensive team. I think he could potentially do that. I don't think the Nets make it far in the playoffs, but I think he needs to have a breakout year this year.
All right, Toddy, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are your breakout players in the Eastern Conference?
So Kev stole one of mine. I had 3. Cade Cunningham was one of my guys that I had. I just think, I think he had like a hand wrist type injury last year. So I kind of was sidelighted him. I think Monty Williams coming in is going to, kind of just preach a new culture and just, with all the young guys that they have over there, I think he is just somebody that, was the number 1 pick at one point in time. I think he's going to show you a lot. I feel like he kind of gets lost in the sauce a little bit. He was at a Team USA camp this summer and was reportedly one of the standouts. I think he was on like the select team, so he wasn't actually on the Team USA team. But I saw some reports when he was practicing with the select team and practicing against the actual Team USA team. He was one of the standouts, and I feel like when he gets back, playing with his club ball in Detroit, I think he's going to show a lot of people that why he was that number 1 pick. I have 2 more after that, and they're actually on the exact same team. It's Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. I think Franz Wagner is. I think a lot of people are they don't watch Magic basketball, but me, I gamble a lot, so I actually see all these guys on this team. They have a lot of young talent, and I think Franz and Paolo are those 2 kind of like corner pieces of the team that can kind of catapult them into the playoffs. I think Franz averaged about like 18 and a half last year. And him playing with his country last year, he kind of showed a lot of flashes, especially against Team USA last year, or not last year, it was a couple months ago. But on how good he actually can be. And Paolo Banchero, obviously, being rookie of the year, I mean, it's pretty much sky's the limit for him. He is a guy that can be, top 10, top 5 in this league. He has that potential. And I feel like, just the tandem of those 2, by the way, they're both like 6'9" a piece. So, and these guys can handle the ball. Like Franz is a guy that handles the ball at 6'10" and can shoot the 3 fairly well. So, I think those guys will definitely make huge leaps in, Paolo being his 2nd year and Franz Wagner being his 3rd year. So I feel like those 2 guys will be cornerstone pieces for this franchise.
I was going to put Wagner.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's
but I put Poole instead.
Yeah, he's a dog.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the Orlando Magic. I'm not going to get too big into them. You'll see where I have them in my standings, but I think they're going to be a team that can really make some noise in the Eastern Conference. So while we just talked about Paul Banchero, former Rookie of the Year, Alex, I'm going to go to you next. Who are your top 2 rookies in the Eastern Conference?
Well, obviously, I have just the top. I think they're the only in the top 5 picks, the only 2 that went into the East. I think, right? So I have I have Miller from Hornets,
One of them
and then
ones.
yeah, and then Thompson from Detroit. I think I'm not too worried about the Eastern Conference rookies. I think everyone's kind of looking at the West, um, like me. But I think they could potentially help their teams. I think the Hornets are kind of missing that forward piece. I don't think PJ Washington is. I think he is improving, but then they lost Bridges and things of that nature. So I think they're kind of figuring it out there. I think Melo is going to have a breakout season too. Um, Hopefully, he could get that team into the play-in spot and potentially into the playoffs. And then Thompson from Detroit. I think Detroit just needs to not be so bad, not always tank. And I just want to see him just help the team get some dubs. I just, at the end of the day, like Detroit is just not the best right now. And so hopefully he can help turn it around just a little bit. I don't think they're not making plans, but they could do something. They could be better than what they were last year, and that's improvement. So those are my 2.
So when I made this topic, I was very interested, Alex, because when I came on here and said Brandon Miller was going to be one of the ones, I got none but slander, none but hate. So I'm interested to see who's Toddy's top 2 rookies are in the Eastern Conference. So Toddy, why don't you let us know who they are?
Alex stole one of mine again, or Asor Thompson. I think he's one of those guys. I think he's shown consistently preseason, summer league, that he can be a guy that can kind of help distribute for them. Now, I think that Cade Cunningham, he's going to have to find a way to kind of coexist. Like him and Cade are going to have to kind of find a way to coexist with each other because they kind of do the same thing as far as, having the ball in their hands. But I've seen a couple of, flashes of Asor being able to play off of the ball. So those are good signs as well. My other, it was kind of by committee as far as, other guys in the East. Imani Bates. I think Imani Bates is kind of going to be a guy that a lot of people are like, okay, he had a good preseason and he had a good summer league. Is he really that good? I think this is a guy who at one point in time was the best player coming out of high school. Going into college, he ended up getting hurt, having to transfer. Have some off the court stuff ended up happening, so he ended up transferring to Eastern Michigan. Yes. So, I think where he's at, he can kind of come in and just, hey, go score. You got, the position that he plays isn't something that they don't really have a wing that can score. So that's why I feel like he can definitely fill that void and kind of just go out there and go hoop and get you 12 to 14-ish points a game. And if he does that, that's more than enough for what the Cavs can be. And obviously, Brandon Miller is the number 2 pick in the draft. So it's kind of like, all right, can you kind of let's see what you're going to be able to do. I'm not as high on Brandon Miller as Kevin is, but we'll see kind of where that takes them with this Hornets team. They're fairly young, as we kind of already mentioned with a couple of the younger teams in the NBA. But the Hornets, they'll get to the play-in and then they get demolished by like 40. So how good can this Hornets team be? How good can Brandon Miller be? How is he going to fit in, with LaMelo Ball, a guy, who pretty much runs the show. So we'll see where that takes him. And Anthony Black is another guy who I'm curious to see how he'll fit into this Orlando Magic team. Is he going to be the number 1 or the starting point guard? Is going to be Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony? Like they have a lot of guards on that team. So and they're like, if they end up starting Anthony Black, like everybody's like 6'7" and up that would start on that team. So I feel like the dynamic that he brings is kind of a LaMelo-ish type, I don't think he can shoot as good as LaMelo, maybe distribute as well as him or score as well as him. But I feel like he's a very good distributor of the ball, and just needs to be a little bit more aggressive on offense that I'd like to see. Didn't really see that. I saw a little bit of it in summer league of him being, a little bit more aggressive with the ball in his hands and trying to go score. But he's a guy that can definitely create for others, and curious to see if he does start for his team. I don't think he does right off the bat, but I feel like they'll try and work his way in that starting.
So again, some back knowledge into why I make these topics. When I did this, I said, all right, well, I can't put Imani Bates because Totty's got to put Imani Bates 100%. So we're talking about Jet Howard, we're talking about Franz Wagner, we're talking about Paulo Banchero, one of the top 2 rookies in the East, in my opinion. It's going to be Jet Howard. I don't know if you guys tuned into the live draft with me and Toddy. Every pick after probably 6, I thought it was going to be Jet Howard, dog. I was Jet Howard this, Jet Howard that. Toddy, or not Toddy, West in the comments talking about how you're going to show so much love to a Michigan guy. He is the modern-day 3-and-D guy. Like Toddy mentioned, they can put out a 6'7" lineup. He's 6'8". He's a shooter that can shoot the lights out. He showed that in Michigan playing under his dad. So he has the NBA. He knows what it is. He's going to be prepared. He's not going to be like the typical rookie. He's going to know what to expect because his dad did it. And his dad did it at a very high level. So I'm looking for Jet Howard to go in there and play a very important role for this team off the bench because, like we mentioned, he has Franz Wagner and Paulo in front of him, so he's not going to start. But for him to come off the bench and just be a knockdown shooter and play defense, I think he's going to be very important for them. And then secondly, my man Brandon Miller. We all saw the news about Miles Bridges now going back with some more drama. So in the offseason, when we first talked about Brandon Miller, I said I didn't know how he was really going to fit with Miles Bridges coming back because Miles Bridges, if not for his incident that we're not going to speak on, he would have been a max player. So now having to come back and fit with that. But now that he's not in the picture at the very moment, as of today, October 20th, I think Brandon Miller can fuck around and win Rookie of the Year. He's going to have the opportunity. It's going to be LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. We saw that
Language.
they continue. Oh, what? Language. I think Brandon Miller is going to go in here and can average anywhere from 18 to 20 points because, like I mentioned, it's just going to be him and Melo. Terry Rozier, I think, is going to have to take a backseat to Brandon Miller. We've seen Gordon Hayward. I know you guys are Celtic fans, so I don't know how you feel about Gordon Hayward, but this roller coaster of him being healthy, him not being healthy, they really need a wing presence. And I think Brandon Miller is going to bring that presence. We saw him do it in the SEC last year, being freshman of the year and just really having that impact on that Alabama team. I'm really excited to see what Brandon Miller can do at the next level. So now that we're diving deeper into the Eastern Conference, Alex, I wanted to go to you first on your contenders in the Eastern Conference. I'm sure we can all guess who they are, but I want to hear from you.
I was about to say we might as well skip this section and just go to the next one because I think we're all going to have the same answer, and that's just the Bucks and the Celtics, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't see anyone else trying to beat
The
them.
Miami Heat.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started with the Heat because when I was trying to make my standings, I was like, where should I put the Heat? But I was like, because I watched the Heat in the regular season, and they were just like mediocre.
Mid.
Like when they got into the play-in, I was like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, they don't. So I'm like, then I shouldn't care about where they are in the standings. They just need to make a top 10. So
just make it to the play-in, I guess.
Yeah, just make it to the play-in. Like
they weren't even one of the top 2. They've gotten to the play-in. They lost
their
first game of the play-in.
Exactly. So I'm just like, yeah. So.
But yeah, no, I figured when I did this note, I was like, yeah, I think we're all going to be the same. Toddy, I'm assuming you're going to go with the Bucks and the Celtics, unless you have a sleeper pick for us.
Bucks, Celtics.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go Bucks, Celtics as well. We don't know who's going to be the number 1 seed out of the two of them, but they're both going to be the top of the top. So I think these next 2 categories are going to be very interesting because in the West, we talked about everybody competing and wanting to win. So now on the Eastern side of things, Alex, or no, Toddy, I'm going to come to you first. Who are your pretenders in the Eastern Conference?
Pull out the handy dandy notes here. Oh, I said everybody else.
I did too.
You guys are horrible.
I put everybody else.
Everyone else.
It's not really. I mean, hey,
Celtic fans, man, I can't believe
when you just look at just the acquisitions from on both teams, that being the Bucks and the Celtics, it's just kind of just like, all right, like, what did anybody else do? They didn't really. There wasn't a team. I mean, you could say
I think the Cavs. but they're
Yeah,
still
the
pretenders.
Cavs. You can say the Cavs. I feel like
Right.
they're not.
They're in that gray area.
Hinder.
If
They're
everything
Yeah,
goes
they're
right, the
not.
Cavs can fuck
Mhm.
around.
Yeah,
And do
they're like in
something.
that second tier, I would say. I don't think that
Yeah.
they're one of those top teams that could be like, all right, yeah, they're gonna be able, they're contending for championship. Yeah, they got Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell had 70 points in a game last year. He was an all NBA guy. So I just think, how good can they kind of be? They lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Knicks, and I feel like they were favored to win that series. So how good can you actually be? But the Bucks lost in their first series last year, but they got Damian Lillard. So everybody else is pretty much pretenders in the East.
All right, Alex,
Next
I'm gonna bring
topic.
it to you next.
Yeah.
So you'd say, okay, well, I have some
I-
pretenders. So one of the pretenders in my category are the Miami Heat. I think because they missed out on Drew, they missed out on Malcolm Brogdon, they missed out on Dame. They're the same team that they were last year, and the big thing last year in their momentum was the undrafted guys, the Gabe Vincents of the world, and the Max Strus. Those guys are no longer there, so they're kind of. I didn't know if I wanted to put them in tankers or pretenders because you can't take out postseason Jimmy, regular season Jimmy, but you can't count out postseason Jimmy. And another team I have on this category are the Raptors. All offseason, we heard them talking about, are they going to trade OG and Pascal? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? I think it's this time for them to kind of figure it out. Either going to go all in and try to compete, or you need to be in the tankers. But as of right now, I have them as being one of the pretenders. So, Totty, I'm going to come to you next. Or Alex, I'm going to come to you next because I went to Totty first last time. Who are your tankers in the Eastern Conference?
The Raptors.
Okay.
Only because I don't know how they fit. Like you said, Kevin, with this team, if they're gonna just kind of, all right, this is the squad, let's go with it, or let's get some more pieces, right? I really want Scotty Barnes. He should have been one of my breakout players too. I really want him to be considered all-star.
Yeah.
Don't think I think he could, and potentially in the East, I think he could. But I don't know. But I also have Detroit. I have them, I think, at the end of like the last standing in the East. So I think they're gonna tank. And Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta. I think this is the last year of Murray and Trae Young together. I don't think Trae Young likes that system. I don't think he likes being on a team that's not competing for a championship year after year. I mean, they had that one spectacular season as like the 5th seed, and they made it to the conference finals. But I don't know how far they could go this season. And if they don't make it to the playoffs, I could see them taking.
All right, Toddy, I'm gonna bring it to you next. Who are your tankers in the Eastern Conference?
Oh, by the way, Scotty Barnes sprained his foot in the last preseason game.
Yeah, put him in the tanker category.
Yeah.
That was a team I didn't have them making the playoffs, so I guess by default they would be in the tanker spot. But I'm gonna go with Washington. I think Washington is just kind of roll out the ball, go Kuzma, Jordan Poole, y'all go score as many points as you can. Everybody else, you kind of just fall in line. We already saw Denny Avia with the whole thing on it. I'm open, man. Hey, bro, this is what he does, man.
This is Jordan Poole show.
It is the Jordan Poole show. You gonna be sitting in what Nick Young said? Welcome to the court. He's gonna be a part of the corner store team. So he gonna be sitting in the corner, waving his arms, hoping to get the ball because Jordan Poole ain't passing that. He's not passing that ball. It's gonna be Kuzma and Jordan Poole. You might see some 1-2 action with them. So I wholeheartedly think the Wizards are gonna try and get the number 1 pick next year. As for my other, I mean, that's really I feel like that's the team that's gonna try and tank out of pretty much the entire NBA. I feel like it's the Wizards. So
I'm surprised no one had this team in the tankers. My biggest tanker in the Eastern Conference is the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
They swung big and they missed. Lonzo Ball, they had Zach LaVine, they brought in DeMar DeRozan, they brought in Vucevic, and they were playing very, very well when they were all healthy. Lonzo goes down, and this team goes like with the Pelicans. They went from the top to the bottom. And every year, you're relying on DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. We've seen after these past 2 years with Lonzo Ball not being there, they're just not able to do it. we saw guys in other roles like Alex Caruso with the Lakers not be able to translate over there. They're just in a weird spot right now. They're not really competing for anything. They traded their picks for DeMar DeRozan. So at this point, that's how Franz Wagner became Magic. That was the Bulls pick. So if you're going to sit here and get lottery picks, you might as well just commit to tanking, get rid of Zach LaVine for some picks, get rid of DeMar for some picks, trade off Vooch for some picks, and kind of just commit to building around the young guys because they don't really have any young guys. Like I mentioned, they had to give up their back-to-back years first-round picks. So they're just in a spot where it's, yes, you're the organization that's the Magic or Michael Jordan and all this historic winning, but it took a while for them to get there. So at this point, I think they just need to hit the reboot button and start over. So because Kevin is such a horrible host, I forgot to get the standings, but I think this way, doing it back-to-back kind of makes it interesting. So Alex, give me your play-in teams for the Eastern Conference.
Play-in. Okay. That's 7-10, right?
Yeah.
The play-in?
No,
okay.
6-10.
Oh,
no,
six,
yeah, 7-10.
six,
7-10.
seven. Okay. I have 7 Pacers. I have 8 Bulls, 9 Hawks, and then the Heat at 10. Because I don't really trust them.
All right, Toddy, let me hear your playing teams for the Eastern Conference.
I went back and forth a lot on this one. I was swapping a lot of teams out. 7, I have Atlanta. 8, I have Orlando. 9, I have Detroit. 10, I have Indy. So I'm kind of higher on. I'm higher on Detroit than a lot of people.
I forgot Indiana.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's one of my teams. So I'm gonna have to throw the Pacers in there. I had the Hawks in there, but I think I'm going to have them get jumped by the Pacers. I also have the Magic in here. I think the Magic, we've talked about them heavily on this podcast. I think they're ready for a jump. Not a first through 6, but I think they can go here in the play-in and make some magic. We saw the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers both reach the conference finals out of the play-in. So you can hit some fire real early and continue to play. So I think the Magic, the Indiana Pacers, and for my last team, we're going to have to go with the 3-peat play-in team, the Charlotte Hornets. I think the Charlotte Hornets are going to be able to compete and get in there for that playing team. So, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Bring us your 1 through 6, but go 6-1.
6-1. Okay. 6 Nets. 5 and 4 are going to be interchangeable. It just really depends on the whole Harden situation and how Maxey turns out this year. But I have 5 at I think I said 5 at Knicks, 4 76ers. I have 3 Cavs, 2 Bucks, and 1 Celtics.
Wow.
All right, Ty, I'm going to bring it to you next. Give me your 6-1 for the Eastern Conference playoff picture.
Me and Alex's is kind of similar. 6, I had Miami on there. Just they made the finals last year. I feel like they figure out a way to just put themselves on autopilot for the whole season and just get their way to 6 seeds somehow. I had Philly at number 5 because, Embiid, he won the MVP, guys, last year. Let's not forget, like, everyone's talking about, Jokic and all these other guys, the Suns, like that. Joel Embiid did win the MVP last year. Let's just not kind of just throw him, sweep him under the rug. He was he's the defending MVP of this year, reigning MVP of this year. So, got the Sixers at 5. I have the Knicks at 4. I think they had they made some noise in the playoffs last year. I think Jalen Brunson's coming off in another year in the playoffs. Still don't know how he didn't make all-star team last year.
Crazy.
Pretty insane. Them at 4. I have Cleveland at 3. I feel like they figure out a way. They played pretty well in the regular season for the most part. Just didn't get done in the playoffs last year. Wasn't because of Donovan Mitchell, because he almost had 40 in the first game.
He did all he could.
Yeah, he did everything that he could. So it wasn't on him. Second, I have the Celtics. I just think that, obviously that them being the Bucks just play like they play like really good in the regular season. Like last year they were.
That is true.
Like I feel like we like contend to be like the number 1 seed, but then we'll slip up like later on in like the regular season. We kind of start to veer off a little bit, but we'll play so well like 75% of the season. It's like kind of like those last little 20 games is where we end up losing that number 1 seed is probably where it might be at. So the Bucks will probably end up being number 1. They were number 1 last year, and that was just, and Giannis ended up getting hurt. So The Bucks like are tryhards when it comes to the regular season for the most part. So that's why I kind of put them at number 1.
That makes
Alex,
sense.
where did you have the Knicks in your playoff? Did you have them making the playoffs?
I had Knicks at 5 and at the
5.
76ers at 4.
Perfect. So at 6, I have the Knicks. Like Totty mentioned, we're seeing Jalen Brunson really emerge into he could possibly be an all-star. We're going to see Julius Randle, what he can do. We're going to see RJ Barrett coming off a really good year. But a lot of people are in this last offseason were really off RJ. It's hard when you're compared to Zion and Ja. If you're not that, you're nothing. So RJ, I think he's going to continue to get better and better and better. At 5, I have the Nets. I think the Nets are going to come out and continue to build. I think I might be crazy. I think Ben Simmons might be back. I'm a believer. You know what? I got to cross over in football. I believe the preseason juice, so I got to drink the preseason Kool-Aid and hoop. I think Ben Simmons might be back. And Alex mentioned Mikal Bridges being one of her breakout players, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie. They have a lot of weapons over there, so they could potentially go out there and make some noise. At 4, I have the 76ers. Even without James Harden, we see Tyrese Maxey go in there and take that role and really emerge into an all-star, like Alex mentioned. They still have a good team around them. And then you got to take into account, even if they get rid of James Harden, they're getting back something that's going to be able to contribute that day. So even if James Harden goes, I think they can still be here. In 3, just like Toddy, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they're going to have to really go all in because, like Toddy mentioned a couple episodes, Donovan Mitchell didn't sign an extension. So he can go next year. So they have to go all in. And I really don't see this Jared Allen, Evan Mobley thing lasting throughout the season. Jared Allen's already hurt. So this year, I believe in these because he's going to be hurt for a couple of games. So if Evan Mobley can really show that he can play the 5 and flourish and be that 3-level scorer that they drafted him to be, I think they can get rid of Jared Allen and bring in some other pieces to contribute to them. And they brought in Max Strus. Max Strus was, like I mentioned, with the Heat, a knockdown shooter in the playoffs. So for them to continuously add to this team, I think they could compete. And at 2, like Toddy mentioned, I have the Celtics. You guys in the regular season, it's a roller coaster. Either you guys are playing really well and everything's good, or you're about to fire Joe and trade Jaylen Brown. It's either high or lows with you guys. And like Toddy mentioned, he put the try hard for the Bucks, and that's exactly what they are. They want that number 1 seed. They want home playoffs. That's how they won their championship. So that's how they're going to continue to – that's their motto. That's their blueprint is to play hard in the regular season to get that number 1 seed. So now that we did the Eastern Conference, Toddy, I'm going to take it to you next. Give us your Western Conference playing teams.
All right. Kind of went back and forth on this one too. I'm dating this all the way back to February when they did the lottery and the ping pong ball went to the San Antonio Spurs. And I was like, San Antonio is probably going to make the play in some shape or fashion just because Wemby is just they might not make the playoffs.
That's a year 1.
They're going to be playing like material. You got Pop as your head coach, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Wemby, I feel like can be, one of, as Kev likes to say, one of them ones in the regular season. I was listening to KG's podcast, him and Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is already saying that Wemby's like one of them ones already. So just based off of the preseason. So I have San Antonio at 10. Number 9, I have Memphis. I have Memphis at number 9. I just think Ja missing those 25 games. I don't know if they'll be able to make up for 25 games. Just in the Western Conference, it being an arms race, it being so competitive. I don't know if, Ja will be like, all right, we're going to win 25 games straight now. I don't know.
Make up for it.
I'm just going off of just simple math of him missing. Your all-NBA, all-star guy is missing 25 games. And it's a fourth. It's like, a fourth of the season for the most part. So I feel like that's going to put them in kind of a, bit of a pickle, as people like to say. So I have Memphis at 9. 8, I have Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they make that jump. I think they get into the playoffs, and I think Chet Holmgren's going to be a big reason why they actually end up getting in. Just from his play alone, I think he'll be able to average probably close to 17, 18 points in his rookie year. And I think he's just going to – and Shea's just going to be Shea. He's going to get his buckets regardless, and it's going to be all 2s, no 3-pointers. He's going to get to the bucket, get to the free throw line. He's going to have a
shoulder.
He's going to average 30 and average like 2 threes a game. And that's going to be the craziest thing ever. So I have them. And then I have Dallas at 7. I think you guys said that Dallas was, I just think the combination, but Luka and Kyrie, I forget, someone said it on somebody's podcast. They said that Kyrie and Luka, I think it was Jamal Murray that said Kyrie and Luka could probably be the most skilled backcourt like in the history
Easily.
of ball ever. So I feel like if those two are on and they're playing pretty well, healthy, they can get to the playoffs. But I think, just them last year, they kind of fizzled out, trying to kind of just gel themselves into, getting acclimated with playing with each other. I feel like them having a whole offseason, training camp, full regular season, I feel like they're skilled enough to get to the playoffs. So I have them at 7. So I have San Antonio, Memphis, OKC, Dallas.
All right, Alex, I'm going to bring it to you next. Who are your Western Conference playing teams?
Before I say that, that's very interesting you put the Mavs at 7, even though you said earlier they don't play any defense. And this is the West.
Yeah.
So, that's just yeah, they're talented. They could put buckets on the board. I get that. But you're going up against the Suns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I feel like they're too skilled to not make the playoffs. That's why that's why I feel like I have them versus them being like 3rd or like 5th. I feel like they're at the lower end of they're so good offensively, they still can get into the playoffs.
yeah, I get that. So am I going 10 to 7?
So it actually 10 to 6 because it's 4 teams in the plans. So it's 4 teams in the plan.
Okay. So I have 10 Timberwolves. I think
it is 10 to 7 though, Kel. So it's 10.
I think it is 10 to 7. I think the
There's
first
only 3
6
playing teams.
Yeah,
well,
that's still 4 teams.
It's considered.
Oh
4.
yes. Okay, yes. I see what you mean.
Okay.
So yes, it is 7 through 10. Excuse me.
So I have the Timberwolves at 10. I think Anthony Edwards can will this team into a playoff or play-in spot. I don't know if they can make the playoffs, but I think he could will them in there. I have 9 OKC. I think they'll eventually get to the playoffs, but I just need to kind of see how this season goes. I have 8 Pelicans, and that's on the Zion's not playing Pelicans. Now Zion is playing and healthy, they could move up.
Yeah.
And then I have 7 Clippers. I don't really trust the Clippers, but I think they're I think they're too talented not to make it. So I need to see if they're healthy. I need to see how Russell really fits in. I know they got him late last season, so trying to get a full season in of them healthy, them all playing together. Let's see how far they go.
Okay, so with the 10 for me, I was going back and forth. So this spot, I ended up going with the Houston Rockets. I think Ime's not coming to fuck around. He's not coming to lose. They brought in, think what you want about him. They brought in Dylan Brooks. They brought in Fred VanVleet. They signed Lander, the Suns backup. I can't remember his first name. So they're bringing in the guys. They're expecting a huge jump from Jalen Green, a huge jump from Jabari Smith. And then they have Amon Thompson, who's got to go in there and can contribute right away, especially with the Kevin Porter incident happening. Now he gets to come in there and essentially be, the 6th man. They got Cam Whitmore. The list goes on and on and on. So this young team is going to be very, very excited. So I have them.
Cam Whitmore thinks this is his team. I'm just going to say that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He thinks he should win 4. So I have them coming in. And then at 9, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. We've talked about them heavy on this podcast. I think they're going to make that jump. Top 6 is hard. I really wanted to put them in there, but I just don't think they can do it. And then with this last spot, it comes down to the Timberwolves, the Mavs, and the Warriors for me. And you have to give credit to the champs. You have to give it to the pedigree. So I'm going to give it my last play-in spot. I'm going to give it to the Warriors.
Damn. What is that, 7? Okay.
Wait, so you have Houston at 10, 9 OKC. What is 8?
Oh, I didn't. Okay. So 8. Okay, so 8. I have the Mavericks.
Oh,
I have the Wolves missing the playoffs. It's your Timberwolves.
Yes.
Wow. Your best friend's gonna be mad at you for saying
Wes is gonna be upset.
Oh man.
All right. So, Alex, I'm going to go to you next. Give us your playoff teams 6-1.
Okay. 6-1. I have 6 Warriors. I am not going to discredit this team, this dynasty, right? I think the Warriors made a good choice of not breaking it up. They're going to go until the wheels fall off. Hopefully, it's not this season. So my standings are correct. But if healthy and everything goes right, I could see them at least making 6. 5 and 4 are going to be interchangeable, just depending on them being healthy and seeing what the Grizzlies do those first 25 games. I have 5 Lakers, and then I have 4 Grizzlies. 3, I have the Kings.
There we go.
2, I have Suns, and then 1, I have Nuggets. And the reason why I put the Kings above the Lakers, even though I think the Lakers are going to go farther than the Kings, is just because I need to see AD. I think LeBron is going to give you what LeBron can at, what is he, 39, 40? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
He'll be
I
40
need,
this year. That's crazy. That's crazy.
like, I need AD to really come out. Like, I'm tired of this. Like, I remember last playoffs, it was like even and odd games. And then it was like, oh, like something's always wrong. I remember last season, or maybe it was like playing tournament game, and like he fell on his rib or something. He was grabbing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's gonna happen all over again.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was something like that. And I was just like, I just need this man healthy. I need this man to play good. 82 games. So if he plays 82 games, I could see them moving up to that 3rd spot. But I don't trust them, and I trust the Kings more. So that's why the Kings are at 3, and then I have the Suns at 2, and then Nuggets, defending champions, Joker. I can't really go against them.
All right, Toddy, we'll go to you next. Give us your Western Conference playoff predictions 6-1.
Okay, so 6, I have the Clippers. I just feel like they'll figure out a way. These guys just stay healthy. They can just, they're probably going to, I think it's inevitable that those guys miss games, but I feel like they'll kind of, figure out a way. Maybe James Harden gets added to this team at some point this season. But I have the Clippers at 6. 5, I have the Warriors. Now, initially, when I first made this list, and then I looked it over, and I was like, damn, the Warriors aren't even on here. And I was like, they got to be in there somewhere. And I remember early in the podcast, I did say that they were pretenders, but I feel like they're kind of like middle of the pack in the Western Conference. You have arguably the greatest point guard ever to play this game, and Stephen Curry leading the charge. And, you got the band pretty much. I saw there was a report about Klay Thompson not really having, there wasn't really any movement on, contract extensions about him. So, he's posting on Instagram, talking this, that, and the thirds, leaving subliminals. So maybe this might be the last year of the entire trio. I don't know. And Draymond ended up getting extended. So, and then they traded Jordan Poole. So, and then they went through a whole regime trade. Bob Myers ended up stepping down. They hired Mike Dunleavy. So it's a whole new regime in the front office. So I have the Warriors at 5. 4, I have the Kings. I don't think the Kings are this one-trick pony. Last year was kind of a facade. They, try hard. They were that surprise team, and everybody was like, well, it's the Sacramento Kings that made the playoffs. I was like, no, the Kings are actually really good. I just think Mike Brown kind of came in and, did well above what everybody kind of thought that they were, because the standard was just so low being in Sacramento. So him kind of coming to Sac from Golden State and him being able to change the culture around so quickly. And I think, the world kind of saw De'Aaron Fox as one of them ones in the playoffs. And I've kind of been screaming about it since him being in high school for the most part and being at Kentucky and just growing into his own in Sacramento. But, just under the circumstances and the revolving door of head coaches that they have and not really having that stability, and then finally getting a Mike Brown, and then kind of just, this guy has coached the likes of Kobe and LeBron. And, when you get a head coach like that, it's kind of been around the league and, knows a thing or two. It kind of just all goes into place. And I think the dynamic of him and Domantas Sabonis is going to be, problems for people during the regular season. We'll see what it does and how it pans out in the playoffs. And we've talked about Keegan Murray, a guy who's probably going to end up making the leap for this team. So I have them kind of, they're stepping down a little bit. I just think just based off of everything that's happened They'll still be a top team in the Western Conference, but I do have them at number 4. At number 3, I have the Lakers. LeBron kind of just has to figure out a way. We mentioned his age. He's going to be 40 years old in December, which is unheard of. And him just being, at an all NBA level, he's putting up all NBA numbers at this age. It really just doesn't make sense. And you just see him in pregame, him just doing windmills, doing all these crazy dunks. Him and Kevin Durant played against each other for the first time
in 5 years.
It was like 5 years. I think LeBron had like 19 in like 20 minutes. He's 40, bro. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, there's just like everything else, and then there's like the LeBron standard of things of just insanity that he's able to do. It's just crazy. So I think all the acquisitions that they made in the offseason will pan out for them, and it'll show off the court. LeBron has to kind of figure out a way to navigate his way through this 82-game season because he's not, some spring chicken that can just play 75 games in a year now. He's going to, kind of have to step back a little bit. I think I know that there's like the minimum of 65 games that you have to make, but I think there was like an age exception, and it was for
the LeBron exception.
It was literally a LeBron exception. Like, I think he's like one of the oldest players in the league. So
the oldest.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah,
he's the oldest player in the league. I think Iguodala was one of those guys, like competing for oldest players. He just retired today, so it's just like LeBron is pretty, and it's crazy. So I have the Lakers at number 3. Number 2, I have the Nuggets. I get that they are the defending champs. Jokic, Murray. A lot of people were saying they're probably the best duo in the league. A lot of people, I think me and Kevin pushed back on, as far as talent wise, are they the best duo in the league? Now we get Jokic as 2-time MVP. People were so hesitant to give him the 3rd MVP because, like, if you give him the 3rd MVP, he's Jordan, he's Wilt Chamberlain, he's Larry Bird, he's not that. And then he goes out and wins the championship. So I feel like, Jokic is one of those guys who really doesn't give a shit about basketball. He'd rather be at home on his horses. You saw there's like a little clip of him. Jamal Murray was, what you looking at? He was like, oh yeah, these are my horses. He was like, oh, how many horses you got? He's like, I got like 12 of them.
Yeah, he's scouting horses.
he's like, he's just a guy that's so ass backwards when it comes, like, this is just like a job for him. Like, he'd rather just be at home on his farmland and just kicking
chilling.
Back. This is just, something that he does that he just happens to be really, really good at. He's probably one of the greatest centers who will go down as one of the greatest centers of all time, which is pretty insane as far as stat goes. But no, I think, Mike Malone, one of the best coaches in the league. I feel like, the Nuggets will just be one of those top teams in contention. My number 1 team is the Phoenix Suns. I just think that just based off of their entire, like, I'm just seeing so many like interviews of like Book, KD, like, how are you going to guard us? Like, you can't guard all 3 of us at all time. You can't guard. That's a guy that can score 27. That's a guy that scored 30. That's a guy who's averaged 30 in his career. Like, it's just like, how are you going to be able to guard these guys? And I already mentioned all the corner store guys and Yuta Watanabe with Giop and Grayson Allen. Those are the guys that are just going to be, you're going to have shooters everywhere. You're going to have to be able to do, you can't double team anybody on the team. You can't double team Bradley.
Really scores everywhere.
You can't double team Kevin Durant, and you damn sure cannot double team the mini magician and Devin Booker. Like, if you really think about it, there's like 3 mini magicians on the team: Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. So it's just like, I don't know how teams are going to guard them, and I feel like they're going to score a lot of points. I think they'll probably, I said 75 between the 3 of them. They could average 80. Like, between
Easily.
the 3 of them, like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant averaged 80 between the 2 of them last year in the playoffs. So I'm just like, if you add another guy that can score 30 on any given night, like, they can for sure average 30. I'm just gonna go on a limb, they'll average 80 between the 3 of them, just throughout the entire season, 80 points, and then everybody else, 3 ball here, 3 ball here. You're at 80, and then just everybody else
Free throws.
Yeah, free throws. Everybody else can score 40-ish points. That's like 120 already. So, and just give it on any given night. If you're scoring 120, 130 a night, you're a tough team
to beat. They're
so,
going to outscore you.
Yeah, they might not play defense, but they'll damn sure outscore you. So I have the Phoenix Suns as the number 1 team in the Western Conference.
All right. So my team, 6-1. At 6, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. I believe Zion's going to come back, put a healthy season together, and they're going to continue their momentum. I think they're going to take a dip, though, because I think CJ McCollum's only getting older. So at some point, he's just going to start falling off. So we're going to see. Hopefully, it's not this year because I have big aspirations for them and Brandon Ingram. But we'll see how that plays out. At 5, I have the Los Angeles Clippers. I think that this is the year because due to the rules of the all NBA and the way they stand with the franchise due to their contracts, I think Paul George and Kawhi are going to go out there and play as many games as they can. And if they are on the court together, they arguably could have beat the Suns in the first round. So this team could make a lot of noise. At 4, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. I have them at 4 not because I think they're the 4th best team in the West, just because I think they're going to prioritize health. Like we mentioned with Anthony Davis, LeBron James being 40 years old, you brought in all this depth for a reason. Let these young guys take you there. And if you at this point, the Lakers just need to get in. Even if that's the play-in, as long as they get in the dance, they're going to have a chance because they have LeBron and Anthony Davis. At 3, I have the Denver Nuggets. I think they're going to take a step back this year. They have no more Bruce Brown. They're losing a lot of guys, so now they're like the Warriors. You're gonna have to really commit to these young guys, Chris Brown and Peyton Watson. These young guys are gonna have to come in right away. Julian Strawther, they're gonna have to come in right away and produce. If they don't produce, they're gonna be in trouble. Jamal Murray's gonna have to take an all-star leap, or we're gonna see the same Aaron Gordon we did last year. They're gonna have to continue to get better. They can't continue to be the same team because I think that's not gonna be enough. Can Jamal Murray put together another healthy season? So I have them at 3. At 2, I have the Sacramento Kings. I think we're going to come around, and I think we could have been the 2 seed last year with the Grizzlies. So I think the Sacramento Kings are going to be able to come in and make some noise. And like Totty said, they're going to show that last year wasn't a fluke. And number 1, I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns. So
you can't guard them.
you can't guard them.
You can't guard them.
So this is episode 57 of Stats Over Politics. This is Kevin Dent with Javon Totty and Alex Dent. Thank you to those of you who have listened all the way through. We have one more topic to go. It's a recurring segment in our show, so it's going to be a fast one. So, Alex, this is going to be your first fact or cap. So I told you guys to bring some homework. So on a podcast, Miles Turner said he is a top 5 center in today's game. So the question today, fact or cap, Miles Turner is the top 5 center. Alex, I'm going to go to you first.
All right. So I had this list, but then I deleted it. So I'm writing it down now. So obviously 1 and 2 interchangeable is Joker and Embiid, right? I'm not even going to discuss that. 3rd, I have Davis. 4th, I have Cat. So off the rip, without really looking at the landscape of the league, he could but I feel like the center position isn't prominent in today's league, obviously. So it's really yeah, you could say you're top 5, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily the best of the best. You know what I mean? If you say you're top 5 and you're a guard, okay, so you're probably the best player on your team. Whereas if you're not Joker or Embiid, you're just kind of the second tier centers. Right? Jaren Jackson could be 5, right? So I don't even know if he even makes it. If he does, he's barely skimming it. So I think it's Cap. I don't think he makes it. I think he may be top 7-ish, maybe.
Okay. So Tadia, I'm gonna bring it to you next. Fact or cap? Is Miles Turner a top 5 center?
So you had Anthony Davis on there. I don't really consider Anthony Davis a 5. I feel like he's more of a 4, and they just make him play the 5. I feel like I heard Anthony Davis more like a 4, stretch 4 for the most part.
He's a center on ESPN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Davis is a 4, so I don't really consider him a 5. As far as Miles Turner, I feel like 1 and 2, like you mentioned, it's Embiid and it's Jokic for the most part. I feel like you gotta put Jaren Jackson Jr. in there somewhere. He was Defensive Player of the Year. So his defensive game or his offensive game, can be off and on, but I feel like he's one of those guys. Man, this is kind of tough. Miles Turner, is he top 5? Is Bam a 5?
I was gonna say, yeah, I'm surprised Alex didn't say Bam. Yeah, you gotta put Bam as a 5.
I forgot. So yeah, I stand by my choice then. That's Cap. Because Bam is a 5. But then it's so like Totty said, like AD is not considered, like, if you look at him, he probably doesn't play center that much. He's probably a stretch 4, but like he could potentially play center. So it's very difficult.
Better than Aiden?
He can stretch the floor. That's the only reason I go Miles, probably.
A lot of people are asleep on Wendell Carter Jr. just because he plays in Orlando. I feel like he has, like, his talent level is like a top 5 center in this league for sure. I just think that he doesn't get enough recognition because he plays in Orlando. Nobody watches Orlando basketball. I would say fact. I'm kind of looking around. It's not really like, okay, like he's like up in there. Like if you coin flip, it's like, all right, Miles is better than him. He's better than this guy. You could put Vucevic in there, but he doesn't play defense. So I'll say Miles, top 5 center in the NBA. It's not really like there's much to pick out there. It kind of just falls off of a cliff after, like you start getting into the Jonas Valanciunas and the Steven Adams. Like after that, it's kind of like, all right, who are the other guys? So I'll say fact. Miles Turner, top 5 center.
The motherfucking disrespect is out of this world. Is Miles Turner a top 5 center, factor Cap? This is Cap. So like we mentioned, we have the first 2 guys, undeniable. You can't even argue it. We have the Joker and Joel Embiid. At 3, I have Anthony Davis. At 4, none of you guys had him on your list. Sabonis. How is Sabonis not a top 5 center?
Sabonis is a 4. He's not a 5.
He's a 4.
He plays the
he's
5
a 4.
for us. He's a 5 on ESPN. He's a 5.
But that's when you guys are playing small. That's why. He's not a tradition. He's not a traditional, because he played with Miles Turner and he was a 4.
He was a 4.
Different coaching scheme.
He was an all-star.
With Mike Brown, he's a 5. So at 4, I have Sabonis.
I forgot to mention Cat. Cat is definitely on that list. I'm sorry.
Cat was on my list.
Cat is definitely on that list. So let's not get that misconstrued. He was all NBA when healthy. He is, yes. Cat is probably the 3rd best. So
yeah. I got AD, Joel, Joker. If we're not counting Sabonis, I guess I'll throw in Bam. And hot take, Victor Wembanyama will be the 5th best center in the NBA.
I don't think he's a center either. I think
he hasn't even played a real NBA game.
Yeah,
you can't be considered top.
It's projected. Okay, all right. Then I'll go DeAndre Ayton. I think DeAndre Ayton could be. I'm taking DeAndre Ayton over Miles Turner any day of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Miles Turner seems to think differently. You didn't put Cat on your list. Cat not on your list.
See, but I think he could be a 4. He plays the 4 for his team.
But Cat's played 5 like his whole life.
So, man, y'all have different answers for different excuses for different people.
Last year he didn't play. Rudy Gobert's there now, so he is typically playing 4.
He talked about it like on, I think it was PG's podcast. PG had a lot of people on his podcast. He was talking about pretty much like he was doing everything that a 5 does. But then when Rudy came along, he was like, oh, I don't really have to do all of that stuff because he's the one that's blocking shots. He's protecting the paint, doing all that. Because Cat, he's really a guard in a center's body because he shoots all of these threes and won the 3-point contest. And I think he's one of the best 3-point shooting bigs of all time, like as far as like the stats say.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie. Stats are politics.
So Cat he did also say that I think he's like one of the best like big men of all time. Too.
Yeah, no, Cat be talking in his different voices.
Some shit, but I feel like he's proven when healthy that he like the stats are there, all stars, all NBAs, they're there when he's healthy. So Cat is one of the top centers in the league.
All right, Alex, for the last factor cap question of the day, factor cap. Bradley Beal will win a championship before Damian Lillard.
Kevin, that is really difficult. Can I pick or?
No.
No, just kidding. Damn. Are they the same age? I think they're like maybe a few.
They're
years apart.
close. Probably not the
I
same.
think
But they're
Dame
close.
is older.
I think I want to say fact only because I think the Suns just have more talent than the Bucks do at this moment. Yeah, I'm gonna just stick with my answer fact.
All right, Toddy, I'm gonna bring it to you next. Factor Cap. Bradley Beal will win a championship before Damian Lillard.
It's tough, man. Like, you can't guard all three of those guys on that team. Like, you got Kevin Durant, you got Devin Booker. It's granted, albeit Damian Lillard had Giannis Antetokounmpo was once upon a time MVP in this league, NBA champion. So I feel like when it comes down to it, you have 3 closers versus 1 closer. That being the the Suns versus the Bucks. So I'm gonna say this is a fact.
Interesting. Factor Cap. Bradley Beal will win a championship before Damian Lillard. I'm gonna say Cap. We talked about during our standings how tough the Western Conference is. Their Suns are going to be battle tested. They're going to have to go through a lot of teams. The journey for the Bucks will not be as hard. If all they have to do is beat the Celtics. We talked about that in our tiers list. It's just the Bucks and the Celtics and everybody else. So if they can get through them, I think they have a good chance. But the Suns are really going to have to show that they're a championship team early because they're going to have to go through teams like the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Clippers, the Lakers, the Kings, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans. The list goes on and on and on. So they're going to have to show that they're battle tested early. So I'm going to have to go Cap.
But you don't think going through those teams will prepare you to win a championship, though? Because you're playing in a harder conference. They could lose, but you're playing better teams.
You're going through a gauntlet, though, compared to a picnic walk.
Yeah, Kev said that it's pretty much easier to get to it's like a cakewalk.
It's easier to get there, but I rather play teams that are also wanting to contend. So now I play at a higher level. You know what I mean? So now it's so it's just like because I get the Damian Lillard with Giannis, but I think another thing with me for Giannis is just the free throws. Like you cannot be an MVP and missing all of these free throws. I'm sorry. Like taking like 10, 15 seconds just to shoot one free throw. Like it's literally outrageous. And so that's gonna be my thing looking at the Bucks. Obviously you have Damian Lillard as a closer, but I mean if you get Giannis the ball going downhill, okay, yeah, he could get a bucket. But how often is that gonna happen?
What's his bag look like?
So yeah, because when he shoots threes, it's a little scary for me. Or free throws. Or anything.
He's working with Akeem, though.
So we're closing out here on episode 57. Alex, we just want to speak and let you know that we really appreciate you coming on. You're the first woman that we had on Stats Over Politics. So that's going to be something that you'll always be able to take to the grave with you. So thank you for coming. Like I mentioned, Javon Totty, this is Kevin Dent, episode 57. Hey, man, go Bucks. Alex, you got anything about your Chargers this weekend? You guys going to make some noise?
We just need a dub at this rate. I'm just over it.
Let's go,
and
Buckeyes, baby.
For those of you that didn't watch Monday's show, Toddy got the Philadelphia Eagles on the hotline, baby.
Flapping my damn wings, baby. Let's go.
Thank you guys for staying. Episode 57 of Stats Over Politics. Kevin Dent, Javon Toddy, and Alex Dent signing off. See you guys on Monday for episode 58.
Peace.